Ludger was quick as lightning, wrapping his arm around her waist to help her dodge the incoming arrow. When she opened her eyes, she was shocked to realize she had just been targeted for assassination. He asked, "Are you okay?" She hesitated. "Yeah, thanks." "An ambush? Who did this?" Ludger calmly pulled a staff out from his cloak. "I have a few suspicions, but I don't think it's just one or two people." At that moment, someone spoke up. "James Moriarty, someone as important as you, and yet no escort. What a perfect opportunity for me." He scanned the crowd surrounding him, then guessed. "Leftovers from the Crimson Society, huh? Don't you know why your organization collapsed?" The leader chuckled arrogantly. "I know exactly why. That's why I was so well prepared." Ludger raised an eyebrow. "This smell," he quickly warned, "poison. Violet, don't let your magic control it too tightly." She nodded in response. "You know too much," she replied. The leader heard her voice and grinned. "Wait a second. That voice. It was worth the wait. To think I managed to take out two important people at once." Violetta frowned, lifting her umbrella. "How annoying. Violence is really not my style." He looked at her and asked, "Are you planning to fight them?" She sighed. "We can't run away anymore." Hearing that, he smiled and asked, "So, do you know how to dance?" She confidently replied, "I'm good enough not to need to admire anyone else." Together, they said, "Then leave the back to you." Suddenly, Ludger picked up Violetta and started running. "Do you know who they are?" he asked. Violetta replied, "I've heard of a group of assassins from the south of the desert who kill for money." He nodded, thinking to himself, if they're from the south of the desert, just as he suspected, they are Kalsapa assassins. Ludger reminded her, "Be careful not to bite your tongue." Without waiting for her response, a chain shot out from his sleeve, lifting them both up onto the roof. Behind them, two assassins followed closely. As soon as they reached the roof, one of them threw a dart toward Violetta. She instinctively raised her umbrella to block it, but what shocked her was that the umbrella melted in an unbelievable way. It's important to know that this umbrella was made from a special material very difficult to damage. He said in a low voice, "That's the type of poison they coat their weapons with, something that Kalsapa assassins often use. Basically, nothing can stop it." Violetta asked anxiously, "What do we do now?" He only responded quietly. 1. We wait for them to finish their task, and then we escape. 2. We run now. Violetta leaned back against him, smiling as she said, "The second option sounds better. Hold on tight." Without another word, he lifted her in his arms and quickly started running, jumping off the rooftop. The two assassins watched them, exchanged a few words, and then their eyes split as they began chasing after them. But they hadn't gotten far when one of the assassins suddenly heard a voice. Wait. He turned to see Violetta standing alone, staring into the dark alley. "You're really leaving me behind?" "I guess I was wrong about you. You really are a coward." The assassin slowly approached her, two sharp throwing knives ready in his hands. But he couldn't believe that the man had actually left this woman behind. It had to be a trap. She was just bait. But where was the man? He tried to sense his presence, certain the guy was nearby. There. His instincts went off, giving him a warning. He spun around, throwing a knife in that direction. But what he didn't expect was that the knife struck the wall, and there was no one behind it. Before he could figure out what was happening, he suddenly felt a sharp pain. A cold, piercing sensation shot through his chest. He looked down. A sharp sword had pierced through his chest, blood soaking through and staining his clothes. Blood was also trickling from the corner of his mouth, and his whole body was shaking. His eyes, bloodshot, said, "How? How could this happen?" Ludger smiled wickedly, his eyes gleaming with a strange blue light as he spoke. "It's just some magic, though I did add a little scent enhancer." With a flick, the sword was pulled out, and the assassin fell, lifeless. Ludger twirled the blade but at that moment, the voices of the crowd could be heard from a distance. "We hear them over there. Hurry, catch them. We'll die if we let them escape." It seemed that the scent had dissipated quite a bit. Ludger asked, "Can I leave this to you?" Hearing that only surprised Violetta even more. She exclaimed, "You killed Belbot Rickson?" He answered briefly, "Yes." It seemed that this man had done something shady while providing funds for Daughtry, maybe even committing acts that violated human dignity. I don't want to stand with someone like that. By the way, speaking of Daughtry, I'll give you a few of his rookies. You can through enough. Do what you want with them. Violetta seemed to have guessed his intentions and said, "In return, you want us to investigate who was behind this, right?" He didn't expect her to figure it out so quickly, so he laughed and said, "I was actually planning to ask for it in a different way." Violetta sighed and responded, "It looks like we'll be busy soon. Also, we have to manage the business you suggested." Ludger asked, "You can't handle it?" Violetta turned her face away and replied, "You're hurting my pride. Just wait, I'll do both perfectly. I'll work harder than you expect." Violetta turned and walked off while he smiled and said, "That's a very good answer. Take care. They both turned and walked away, disappearing into the alley, leaving the night in peace. A loud voice came from the door of a house. "Hey, assistant, get over here." The angry voice asked, "Who said I was your assistant?" Ludger opened the door and stepped inside, only to find a chaotic scene of people struggling. "You should just come when you're called," someone said. All right. Now move out of the way." Ludger spoke up. "What's all the noise about?" "Oh, it's you, Ceoren." A girl was pinning Han down and punching him. To introduce her briefly, her name was Ceoren, and she was Ludger's ally. She belonged to a dwarf race and worked as an inventor. Ceoren turned around when she heard the complaint. When she saw it was Ludger, she said, "Oh, it's you, sir." Seeing Ludger, Han quickly cried for help. "Big brother, please stop her." Ludger noticed his brother seemed to be enjoying himself and said, "Looks fun, huh?" Ludger told Ceoren to stop bullying Han, added, "Look at this." Ceoren quickly ran over and said, "Okay, let me see." The moment she touched it, she screamed, "Ah! Sir, did you pull the rope while dragging someone else along? I told you, it's only for one person. The hook is completely loose now." Ludger just shrugged and replied indifferently, "I have my reasons." After saying that, she managed to smile again. It'll take about 10 minutes. Please wait a moment." Han groaned as he got up, complaining, "Oh, why is this little troublemaker being so rude to me?" Ludger thought to himself, "Asterisk, it's because you're weak, asterisk," but said aloud, "She's older than you. Be patient." Han replied, "At first, I thought she was just a kid. Now that I think about it, the first time I met Ceoren, wasn't it when you met her in the mines of Delica?" Han also recalled, "That's right. She was captured and made a slave there. Ceoren was sitting next to a pile of explosives. Just thinking about it makes me shiver. Was that really considered being captured? With that many explosives, a single mistake could have killed all three of us. And it wasn't just the three of us. If that thing had exploded underground, a kilometer down, even the night captain wouldn't have made it out alive." Then Han suddenly remembered, "Earlier, I saw some strangers looking for her. I took care of them. They're from the Crimson Society, so there's definitely someone behind this. Can you investigate?" He scratched his head and sighed, "I'm so busy. Checking things for the auction has already worn me out." At that moment, Ceoren called out loudly, "Hey, assistant, hurry up and come here." Ludger shouted to Han, "First, go to Ceoren. Don't let her get a hold of that gunpowder." Ludger went up to the second floor room to rest and think. It'll take them about 30 minutes. In the meantime, I'll take a quick break. As he looked out the window, Ludger suddenly noticed something. A group of people in black cloaks were moving quickly and quietly. I can't even hear their footsteps. A broom moving in perfect sync at this hour. Could it be? One person suddenly glanced back, revealing silver hair. Someone behind her asked, "What's wrong?" The silver-haired leader responded, "Nothing. Ludger realized they were noticing him, so he quickly stepped aside, thinking, "Looks like she didn't see me." He thought they might be knights, but the silver hair could only belong to the captain of the Night Patrol Knights, Turin Howell. But why would she be here in Redderblight? I've heard she was in charge of the Belboss Rickon murder case. Could she be thinking that incident is connected to what just happened? Luckily, I erased all the evidence back then. I don't want anything to do with that weird guy anymore. Lost in thought, Ceoren happily ran up and said, "Hey, sir, I'm done. It took a little longer because I wanted to make sure everything was just right." Ludger tried it on and felt that it was smaller and thinner than before. Ceoren told him to give it a try. Ludger did it. He noticed it was much stronger than it had been. Ceoren smiled and said, "I made it twice as strong. Now you can use it for 2 people. I also added a new feature. Try making a fist and move your wrist." Ludger, still a bit doubtful about the new feature, went ahead and tried it. He felt a small knife embedded inside. Ceoren excitedly continued, "I added that because I remembered what you mentioned before. If you loosen up, it will retract. You told me about it before, so I added a little extra this time. Do you see that small hole on the left? You can shoot tranquilizer darts through that to paralyze your target." Ludger thanked Ceoren and said, "I really like it. Thank you." Ceoren sighed, "Well, you do have a good eye. That coward keeps saying it's dangerous and all, but this is exactly what I expected from a Ceoren Academy professor. At least these things should already be available." Ludger felt like that wasn't entirely accurate, but shrugged it off. "Anyway, it's fine." Ceoren complimented him again. "That suit looks pretty nice. Just by looking at it, you can tell you're a gentleman, not like some nobleman." Ludger thanked him for the compliment. He got ready to leave and said, "I'll make good use of it anyway." Ceoren was surprised he was leaving so soon. Ludger explained he was just taking a walk. Ceoren said, "Before you go, I'd like to ask you a favor." Meanwhile, back with the group that had been hunting Ludger earlier, Turin and her 2 teammates were drawn to the noise and moved closer. Looking at the wounds, she recognized they were caused by magic. Is there some kind of faction conflict here? Seeing the faces of the people, Tarina realized they were probably from the Crimson Society. When she looked deeper into the alley, she saw 2 more bodies. Tarina moved closer, pulling daggers from the bodies of the dead. The sour smell on the blades told her it was the kind of poison used by the Kalsapa assassins. Loy was surprised. You mean the assassin organization from the Fatima Kingdom to the south? Annie asked, is it possible that there's a conflict between Crimson Society and Kalsapa? Tarina replied, no. They didn't die from poison, so they might be on the same side. Anyway, he was killed with a single strike. Loy, check on this Kalsapa person again. It seems he was stabbed through the heart from behind. Tarina felt that the 2 assassins must have engaged in close combat. They probably thought their target was a wizard who couldn't use a knife. They made a wrong assumption, and that's why they ended up dead. The person who killed those assassins was a skilled wizard who used a sword and wiped out Crimson Society. The other 2 were surprised by this reasoning and asked, Crimson Society? Why do you think that? Tarina responded, a disbanded organization hiring Kalsapa. That must be some kind of deep grudge. Then Tarina suddenly thought Belobot's funds were once transferred to Crimson Society. Someone killed Belobot and a member of Crimson Society. A factory was burned down and a Ceoren professor burned a werewolf to death. These things are definitely connected. Tarina stood up and said, we're done here. Let's go. Loy asked, done already? Tarina answered, yeah, I've got the key points. Evia said, but we're still not close to a conclusion. Tarina replied, just keep going like this. Before Tarina could finish, Enya interjected, it's not over. There's still one more place with a clue. Should we check it out? After agreeing on the matter, Tarina said, all right, let's go with that decision. The scene shifted to Ceoren, where Selina greeted cheerfully, hello, Professor Ludger. I heard you're not working today. Ludger replied, that's right. I don't have any classes today. Is there something I can help you with? Selina hesitated before saying, someone's looking for you. I was passing by, so I thought I'd stop in. Ludger asked curiously, who is it? Selina answered, is a knight from the National Security Bureau. Upon hearing this, Ludger said, I'll go there right away. He quickly made his way to his study. When he arrived, Loy greeted him. Are you Ludger Cherish? Loy swiftly ran his finger across the bookshelf. Ludger responded, yes, that's me. Please have a seat. After sitting down, Loy introduced himself as a member of the National Security Bureau. Ludger asked, would you like some tea? Loy replied, that's fine. I don't eat or drink during work hours. Ludger nodded and said, understood. So, what brings you here? Loy asked, you've already handled the werewolf incident on campus, right? Ludger confirmed and then asked again, is something wrong? Loy smiled, no, I just want to know the details. Feel free to share everything, like we're talking as friends. Ludger agreed, thinking to himself, Asterisk, isn't Tarina Lionhowl supposed to be here? I thought I'd meet her. As long as it's not her, this won't be too hard, Asterisk. Ludger said, I'll start now. After explaining the details of the werewolf murder, Loy said, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Ludger replied, you're working for the country. It's an honor for me. Before leaving, Loy turned back and said, it was a pleasure meeting you. Ludger responded, same here. As Loy left, Ludger stared at his hand deep in thought. Loy went to meet Tarina and Enya in the Ceoren courtyard. He asked Tarina, you've arrived. Did you find any leads? Tarina replied, no, nothing at all. We even had a search warrant, but couldn't find anything useful. What about you? Did you follow my instructions? Loy answered, I did exactly as you instructed. Tarina, looking anxious, asked, does that mean the person we're after is someone well-trained? Loy said, even though he was wearing gloves, when I shook his hand, I could tell he was like a regular mage. Never been involved in any violence. Is Enya really surprised? Are you sure about that? Loy replied confidently, of course I'm sure. Tarina also responded, does the hand look like that of an ordinary mage? Tarina paused thoughtfully. This is beyond what I expected. I thought I'd finally found a new lead, but now we've hit a dead end. Tarina turned to leave. If there are no more clues, we'll have to stop the investigation. Enya, you stay here and let me know if you see anything suspicious. Enya was taken aback. Huh? Me? No, before I do that, we should meet with them first. Tarina interrupted. We can't meet with them. That's the condition. Enya, puzzled, asked, condition? Just then, Elisa called out to Tarina, how long has it been? When they saw the person was Principal Elisa Willow from Ceoren, both Evia and Loy were shocked. Huh? Principal Elisa Willow? Do they know each other? Tarina turned and asked, what brings you here? Elisa smiled. At least say hello to your friend. Tarina, looking frustrated, replied, why should I? After you interfered with my meeting with Professor Ludger, you're being overly kind now. What, with no real purpose? Elisa smiled and said, don't harass our talented new professor. I've gotten quite fond of him. Who knows what you might do to him? I guess you think I'm the type who would chase someone off. Am I wrong? Tarina immediately closed her eyes, turned away, and replied, I'm leaving now. No need to see me off, Elisa. I don't need you to escort me. Elisa tried to stop her, saying, at least stay and have a cup of tea before you go, Terina. Through the window upstairs, Ludger saw the principal and a guard officer talking. He stood there, wondering, I'm not sure if they're connected in any way, but thanks to her, I managed to avoid being interrogated. I can't let my guard down in front of Loy, but his every move gives me useful clues. First, he checked for dust and appeared very neat and tidy. I think he's afraid of dirt. When someone like that offers to shake hands without gloves, it means they're trying to confirm something. So I added Ceoren synthetic skin just to be sure. Luckily, it wasn't for nothing. It took some effort, but I'm still one step ahead. Now, should I take a break and prepare for the test? Asterisk, asterisk, 1 week later, asterisk, asterisk. Lately, it seems like everyone else has been acting really cautious. The reason seems to be that the Guardian has been visiting Ceoren a lot recently. Cautious? What do you mean by that? Can you explain more clearly? Everyone is avoiding contact with that person. Even the usual private gathering spots have been moved outside of Ceoren. I see. Is there anything else unusual? Oh, by the way, 2 days ago, 3 people from the third-year group got arrested. I don't think it's a big deal, but I still thought I should let you know. Ludger asked, confused, the third-year group? Yeah, it's not really important, so I didn't report it to you earlier. Ludger thought to himself, asterisk, even the third-year group isn't dumb enough to get caught by the guards asterisk. Ceoren added, it's connected to some Ceoren students, 2 boys and 1 girl from your class. Ludger immediately thought of Aiden, Leo, and Tessie. Wait for my class. Yeah, those 3, Ceoren confirmed. Ludger asked, did they get caught in the outskirts? Ceoren replied, it seems like they were on a mission. Ludger asked in return, the mission? Ceoren replied, the students from lower classes have a task board where they can take on missions to earn money for tuition. None of those 3 students come from wealthy families. Ludger thought, even so, I didn't expect them to catch those third years. I've been keeping an eye on them, but this outcome is beyond what I expected. Ceoren spoke up, how should I handle those students? Ludger answered, handle them, just leave them be. We don't need those who are defeated by regular students. Yes, you're right, Professor. Is there anything else? No, nothing except that I agree we should keep a low profile for a while, right? All right, then, let's go. Yeah, classroom. Today marks the beginning of the exam period. I'm sure you've all been studying hard. As I mentioned before, I will teach the basics of primitive magic to the 5 most diligent students. Of course, I won't teach it all at once. I'll divide it into 4 stages, with each exam covering 1 stage. If I discover any cheating or anyone holding an unfair advantage, I promise there will be appropriate punishment. Now, you've all noticed the end time. The test began right at that moment. The clock in the classroom struck 1 o'clock p.m. The exam time was up. You all did great, the professor said. I knew it would be tough as soon as I mentioned you could use your notes. It was so hard that even looking at the book didn't help. At that moment, Arender saw Lynn rushing. She ran after Professor Ludger. Ludger turned around and asked, Lynn, do you have any questions about the test? Lynn held out a book and replied, no, I finished the book you gave me last time. I just wanted to return it. Ludger shook his head. No need. You'll need it again later. This edition suits you perfectly. I think it would be respectful to the original owner if he kept it. Don't return it. Keep it. I trust you'll take good care of it. A voice called out, Lynn, wait up. You're moving too fast. Lynn answered, it's nothing really. Don't worry about it. How did you do on the test? It wasn't as hard as I thought. Arender gave a faint, forced smile. Oh, really? Seeing his mood, Lynn quickly guessed that he hadn't done well on the test. It happens, she said sympathetically. Arender quickly explained, yeah, I've had a lot on my mind, so I just couldn't focus on studying properly. Ludger's test was under review. No matter how many times I looked at it, I was still surprised by how Professor Ludger phrased the questions. You need a solid foundation of good grasp of basic principles, plus a predetermined level of difficulty, and on top of that, a trick question. Since he's such a rigid person, I didn't expect much, but I was still pretty surprised. Wolfert, standing nearby, spoke up. How does this compare to Professor Chris Benamor, principal? Since both of them teach expression theory, I'm sure their tests are somewhat similar. Elisa waved her hand, saying, Hey, don't compare them like that. That's rude. He's just throwing in some technical jargon to show off. I'm sure Professor Chris has seen it by now, though. I'm really curious to see what his face looks like right now. As Elisa had hoped, Chris was practically shaking as he read through Ludger's test. The paper was crumpled and tossed aside, followed by Chris muttering, damn it. I was wondering why the principal suddenly showed up, just to jot down a bunch of questions from Professor Ludger. Thinking back to when Elisa arrived, she was so warm and friendly, holding a stack of papers. Professor Chris, you teach this subject too, right? I brought this because it might help with your next test, she said. Just the thought of being compared to some lowly noble made me think, just wait, Ludger Cherish. I'll make you regret this humiliation. Around noon, Lin was walking and thinking to herself, I already prepared for the other tests. Taking a short break should be fine, right? She remembered Arender, who had been so shaken after the test that she left straight away. Lin hoped she'd feel better soon. At that moment, Lin noticed a group of students talking nearby. Then, a blond guy walked over with a mocking smile. Huh? Wow. Who's this? Isn't this the lowly commoner who's all high and mighty? The guy stepped in front of Lin, blocking her way. She said, Please move aside. But he just smirked and said, What did you say? I didn't catch that. Lin repeated herself, but louder this time. Is this because I rejected you last time? You're so petty. Aren't you ashamed of yourself, being a noble and all? The blond guy's face twisted in anger as he snarled, You're just a commoner who doesn't know her place. He grabbed Lin's arm and pulled her along, saying, Come with me. Lin, being dragged, shouted, What are you doing? He shoved Lin to the ground hard, and the lunchbox she was holding spilled open. Lin hit the ground and, wincing in pain, cried out, Let go of me. Then she turned around to face him. The mocking voice rang out again, You still dare to look up? This is why we need to educate the common people. Suddenly, a student approached and asked, What's going on here? The group looked back and recognized the student as Frudenwohlberg. Lin, also startled, thought to herself, Frudenwohlberg, the one rumored to be ruthless and to treat common people like garbage. And at this moment, two asterisks. The blond guy quickly ran over, bowing and said, I'm just teaching a rude commoner a lesson as a noble would. Fruden shouted, Teaching a lesson? So you're saying you're ganging up on and bullying a commoner? The blond guy quickly tried to explain, That's not it, sir. This filthy commoner dared to disrespect a noble. Fruden yelled, and with a powerful strike, knocked the blond guy down. His cold gaze bore into him as he said, You're the one polluting the name of a noble. Why don't you just crawl back into the trash where you belong? How much longer do I have to see trash like you ruining everything? And you, he turned to the others, how does it feel to be educated all of a sudden? The group, scared, said, No, of course not. Fruden said, Get lost, I won't say it twice. The group quickly nodded and disappeared. Lin spoke up, Thank you for helping me. Fruden looked at Lin and said without thinking, You're Lin. Lin replied, Why? From the ground, Fruden said, Oh, right. Wasn't that your lunch? Well, it's not really edible anymore. Lin replied, Oh, it's fine. I just need to brush off a little dirt. Fruden said, You're going to eat food that fell on the ground. If you don't mind, you could eat with me instead. Lin was completely surprised by his words. Fruden led Lin to a large tree surrounded by many blooming flowers. Lin asked, Where is this? This is the first time I've seen this place since I've been in Ceoren. Fruden said, This is my private spot. Even my bodyguards don't know about it. You can come back here anytime, as long as you keep it a secret from the students. Lin nodded, Of course I won't tell anyone. But was that really your lunch? Senior. Fruden replied, Yeah, I got a little carried away while cooking, so I made more than I needed. Lin was stunned. You cooked all of that yourself? Senior. Fruden asked Lin, Would you like to try some? Lin took a bite and said, Thank you. Oh my gosh, this is so delicious. Fruden replied, I'm glad it suits your taste, but take it slow. Lin looked at Fruden and thought to herself, They say he's a ruthless person who hates common folk, but he doesn't seem like that at all. I guess that's why I shouldn't believe all the rumors. The two of them sat under a tree, one eating and the other watching, looking quite affectionate. In the afternoon on the academy grounds, Selina unexpectedly ran into Professor Ludger. Have you finished grading the tests? She asked. Ludger replied, Yep, I'm on my way to grade them now. You have a practical test this time, right? Yes, for elemental studies, a practical exam works better. Would you like me to come watch? Seeing Selina's eager expression, Ludger realized she was probably nervous since it was her first time handling a practical test. He said, All right, I'll come watch. Selina, hearing this, was excited and replied, Wow, come with me then. Ludger stood to the side, observing Selina's practical class. As she had mentioned earlier, she said, Today you'll be forming pacts with the spirits in this test. You'll use your magical powers to communicate and bond with the spirits. I'll demonstrate first. The colorful beams of light flew in and surrounded Selina. She pointed to one of the glows and said, Say hello to it. The students were quite excited. Is this the power of a professor of spiritology? Selina cheerfully responded, Can everyone see clearly? It's not that hard. Just do what I did a moment ago. Now, go ahead and give it a try. The students began practicing. Ludger, standing off to the side, was called over by Selina. Professor Ludger, would you like to give it a try? It's not too difficult. Ludger replied, No, thank you, but I'm not the type that spirits tend to like. Selina, still eager, said, That's not true. Spirits are very kind. She tried to call a spirit over for Ludger. Look, watch this. However, she noticed that the spirits were trembling, even too scared to come near Professor Ludger. Ludger said to her, "Didn't I tell you? Spirits don't like me." "My dear, you have the qualities of a shaman. The holy spirits are protecting you," Selina said. She was curious. "What's going on here? It's true that sometimes they're not interested, but they're actually this scared." Ludger explained, "My situation is a bit unique, but still, only lower-level spirits would be afraid of me." Selina said, "That's true. The mid-level spirits are still staying calm, even like this. However, it's really unfortunate, and would be much better if you could get closer to those spirits, Professor Ludger." Professor Ludger reassured her, "Well, there are all kinds of people in the world. By the way, you should remember that you're in charge of that test. Is it really okay to just let the assistants handle it?" Ludger's words made Selena suddenly realize, "Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. I'll get back to work right away." Selena left. Ludger sighed in relief. Thank goodness he still had enough magical power. If the mid-level spirits started reacting, Selena would definitely start suspecting something. The truth was, the spirits weren't afraid of him, but of the thing behind him. Because they were the weakest spirits, they could sense the strange power. How ironic. Suddenly, Ludger felt the presence of someone, or rather something, hiding among the trees. This energy, it's even from a fairly strong fire spirit. Can't the others sense it? Even Professor Selina, who was very sensitive to spirits, didn't react. The presence was so strong that even a professor of spiritology, someone who controlled mid-level spirits, couldn't sense it. That meant this wasn't a natural spirit. It was an artificial spirit being controlled by someone. And if they dared to blatantly follow him like this, there could only be one answer. Another spy was hiding here. Ludger was lost in thought. Asterisk, why are they showing up now and just watching me? Why aren't they doing anything? Has my identity been exposed? No, if that were the case, they wouldn't just be standing there. Are they trying to send me some kind of message? Asterisk. Suddenly, he felt a bit warmer. The temperature around him had risen. They were reacting to his words. So what if he moved somewhere with no one around? Asterisk, what will you do now? Asterisk, even if they don't act, at least he'll know what he's up against. He didn't want to miss this chance. As expected, a flash of fire appeared on the ground in front of Ludger, forming letters. It was an invitation for tonight. After class, Ludger arrived at the meeting spot in the woods. As night fell, an eerie laugh echoed, "Oh, you're here early?" A campfire appeared before Ludger. Just as he had guessed, the main body wasn't there. He had a feeling this would happen, but Ludger spoke up and got straight to the point. "What do you want?" "You, huh?" Going straight to the point. "Are you always this cold?" Sigh. "Anyway, I called you here because I need your help." Ludger skeptically asked for clarification. "Mine?" The other person didn't answer Ludger's question, instead continuing. "I'm planning to cause some chaos in Ceoren. You know, I specialize in destruction. But those damn mages keep putting out the fires I start." Ludger sighed, implying, "So you want me to help you play with fire?" Ludger got the feeling that they were scheming some sort of terrorist attack. The other person laughed and replied, "Play with fire? Why would I want to do that? But it's not just my subordinates. Those at the second level have disappeared too. Unlike those at the first level, you don't work with anyone. With your skills, you could easily hide your identity and assist me. Of course, I'm not asking you to work for free. If you help me, I'll make sure to repay you fully, just like a promise or contract." Ludger asked, "Who's involved in this contract?" The other person smiled and answered, "Of course, it's between John Doe and Esmeralda." Looking at their eyes and the curve of their lips, Ludger realized it had to be a woman. Ludger wondered about the name Esmeralda. It wasn't her real name. It had to be a nickname, just like his own. The woman then asked, "So do you accept this offer?" Ludger stayed silent for a moment before saying, "I refuse. In my current situation, I can't do anything." The other person was quite surprised. "What? Wait, I told you everything already. Are you serious about this? Don't tell me you're using laziness as an excuse." Ludger replied, "Normally, that would be true, but things are different now. The principal still doubts me, so I can't make any hasty decisions. If all you want to do is talk, then we're done here." Ludger felt he had gathered enough information. "Let's go." Seeing this, the other person quickly spoke up to stop him. "Hold on. Now that I think about it, I've heard some interesting things lately. I heard you have an assistant, right? Not just anyone, but the great and powerful John Doe has an assistant. And on top of that, they're a second-tier subordinate? Don't you find something strange about that? Don't tell me you're planning something behind their backs." Ludger spoke calmly, though his tone was sharp. "You talk like you know me well, for someone who came to me asking for help. You're not only jumping to conclusions, but you're even doubting me." His voice gradually turned dangerous, filled with hostility. "Just because I infiltrated Ceoren without doing much yet, you think you can look down on me?" The other person began to tremble in fear. "What the hell? You're a weird one." Ludger said, "I can't be the only one without an assistant when every other professor has one. I think it's best to choose someone from the organization. Is that better? Anyway, I don't really need to explain it to you. By the way, I don't see any real intention from you to ask for help. The other person didn't know how to respond. The flames gradually died down. I was just kidding. Just kidding. Don't you think you're taking me too seriously? Ludger's voice turned serious as he slowly turned around. I don't care if you doubt me or not, I'll let it slide this time. I gotta question my loyalty to my superiors. If that happens, one of us will have to pay for it. The other person trembled at his gaze and tone. All right, I'm sorry. I've got nothing else to say, so I'm leaving now. Later, Ludger returned, drenched in sweat, nearly having a close call. Luckily, he had researched the personality of that John Doe guy beforehand. Otherwise, he definitely would have been done for. Thinking back, the voice behind the fire had belonged to a young woman. If it was a young woman and someone controlling an elemental spirit with strong fire magic, then the most suspicious people were the elemental professors. Narrowing it down, the suspects would include any students who could control fire spirits. Ludger's gaze started to narrow as he thought, now that I think about it. Red Herbalife is hosting a welcome event for the new mages because all the sponsors of Ceoren will be attending. All the professors are required to be there. If you're a professor, you'll go to that event. This is my chance. Ludger returned without noticing a room still lit up. The woman who had been there earlier looked out the window silently thinking, he cares so much about his works, so I thought there was something wrong. Looks like I worried for nothing. He wasn't afraid of my fire. Maybe he's stronger than I thought. All that worrying was pointless. She paused her thoughts. Well, there's that event. Damn it, that's right. The main character won't be me, it'll be someone else. That afternoon, Lin wandered to the tree again, lost in thought. I didn't think I'd get to eat with the senior again. He doesn't seem to have any bad intentions. Ever since I was a child, I've been able to sense when someone has malice or bad intentions toward me. The only people I haven't sensed any ill will from are Senior Render, Senior Fruden, and Professor Ludger. No, she corrected herself. Professor Ludger doesn't have any good intentions toward me either. Instead, it's sadness and guilt. But why? Suddenly, someone called out, making Lin jump. You're Lin, right? A freshman? I'm a friend of Fruden's. Henry Presto. Nice to meet you. You've been staying with Fruden, haven't you? Lin was taken aback. How do you know that? Henry smiled. I have my ways. He continued, I was also wondering what Fruden's been up to lately. Lin sensed that he didn't mean any harm, but she could tell he had a dangerous side to him. Noticing Lin staring at him, Henry flashed a bright smile. Did I do something wrong? No need to be so cautious. Anyway, I've got something good for you. Think of it as a gesture of friendship. Actually, I have a part-time job that pays well and is pretty safe. I'm sure you know that most students at Ceoren are just common folks and don't have much money. Lin raised an eyebrow. Why are you telling me this? You just met me. Henry thought for a moment before answering. To be honest, maybe out of curiosity. I was really surprised to see Fruden spending time with someone like you. Lin asked, was it really that surprising? I just thought he was a good person. Hearing that, Henry burst out laughing. Ha, a good person? Fruden? Why are you laughing? Yeah, really. Fruden's a good person. That's rich. That's how I feel after spending some time with him. Still, he was curious about why the two of them were together. You could decide whether or not to accept it after hearing the details. So what do you think? The evening was alive with music and the sparkle of lights in a busy building. A party was in full swing, and it seemed like all the main guests had arrived. I've heard all the new professors are outstanding, a man suddenly exclaimed. Oh wow, he must be one everyone's talking about, Ludger Cherish. Soon, everyone was mingling and chatting with others at the party. Oh, Count Chris Benamore, the rumors were right. You really are quite handsome. Haha, thank you. Professor Merida, is it? I'm Congressman Charles. Ludger stood quietly to one side, observing the scene, trying to figure out what to do. Everyone was busy with the sponsors, so he decided to stay for a bit and then go look for Esmeralda. Suddenly, a middle-aged man approached him. Hello, Professor Ludger. I'm Count Deckers. Ludger narrowed his eyes. Sorry, I'm not in the mood to chat right now. I see. Apologies for disturbing you. Ludger took a sip from his glass of wine and thought, asterisk, Chris Benamore. Turning down that count will keep the annoyances at bay for now. I'll find Esmeralda soon, and no asterisk. Suddenly, Ludger heard a voice call out, Excuse me, we don't know each other, do we? What's with the attitude? Why are you refusing to do anything? Professor Selina seemed like she was trying to avoid someone who was about to start a conversation with her. Ludger stepped in to help her out. Stop right there. Professor Selina already has an appointment with me. The guy was about to ask, who are you? But someone else quietly interrupted him. After hearing that, the guy spoke loudly, a new professor, huh? So what? Doesn't he know who I am? Ludger thought to himself, is he talking about me? Hey, you there. I'm Ivan Luke, the CEO of Luke Corporation. I'm sure you're not stupid enough to have never heard of Luke Corporation. So now that you understand, why would you just leave? At that moment, Ludger felt a trembling hand gripping his shirt. He stepped up directly in front of the guy and said, "Didn't I already tell you we have an appointment?" Ivan scowled, pointing at Ludger's chest and saying, "What? Are you messing with me? You think I'll just leave because of some professor like you? Do you know who I am?" Seeing that the guy wasn't backing down, Ludger tightened his grip on Ivan's hand. "Let me make it clear then. You really think I'm going to leave just because some unknown CEO is standing here talking nonsense?" Ivan winced in pain and muttered to himself, "What kind of strength is this?" He grimaced and shouted, "Let me go." "Do you want to get fired?" Hearing the threat, Ludger tightened his grip even more. "Go ahead, try it," Ludger said calmly. Someone quickly rushed over to intervene. "Stop it. Don't cause a scene at the party." Ivan, clutching his trembling arm, yelled, "You washed up noble." The other person rushed to calm him down. "Young master, please calm down. Don't attract attention." Ivan slapped the person away and shouted, "I told you to call me director." The person quickly covered their face and apologized. "I'm sorry, director." Ivan ignored the apology and continued, "You want me to calm down? After that dog insulted me like that, Ludger, or whatever his name is, I'll make sure they fire you." Ludger realized things were getting way out of hand. All he had wanted was to use Professor Salina's situation to lead the party. Ivan kept screaming, "I'm not some liar." Suddenly, a voice rang out, "Oh, what's going on here?" Elisa smiled as she walked over. When Ivan saw her approach, he quickly turned around and shouted loudly, "Principal, perfect timing. Is this how Ceoren trains their professors? That washed-up noble dares to use violence against me. If you still want to get funding from Luke Corporation, you better fire him right now." Elisa smiled and said, "I was wondering who you were. So, you're the son of Chairman Luke, right?" He was shocked and asked, "What?" Elisa narrowed her eyes, giving him a dangerous look, and said, "Isn't Luke Corporation owned by Chairman Theodore? Why would a director be spouting nonsense like this in front of so many people? Have you discussed this with your father?" Ivan's tone softened. "My father has always supported me. I'm his son, after all." Elisa raised an eyebrow and replied, "Oh, really? Chairman, do you agree with that?" In an instant, Theodore appeared out of nowhere, making Ivan panic and shout, "Dad!" Theodore looked at Elisa, then turned to his son and said, "I'm sorry. Principal Elisa, please forgive my useless son." Elisa smiled. "No, it's actually a bit amusing." Theodore continued, "Thank you for letting it go, but it feels a bit forced to end it like this. How about we do this instead?" Theodore listened to Elisa's words, and his expression suddenly changed. "Principal Elisa, are you suggesting that, in front of everyone, the two of you should fight?" he asked. Ludger, hearing this, angrily thought, "What? She clearly already settled things, so why is this still happening? This might not be a bad thing after all. If it ends like this, that guy definitely won't be satisfied. President Theodore will be in a tough spot too." Ludger spoke up, "That's right. A duel will settle everything. I accept." Elisa turned to Ivan and asked, "Mr. Ivan, since you can't use magic, you have the option of having someone fight in your place." Ivan smiled, looked over at his bodyguard, and said, "I heard that. This is exactly what I wanted. Assistant, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself." Ivan thought to himself, "The opportunity's here. My assistant is a talented mage." Just as he was feeling smug, his smile suddenly faded. Impossible. The winner is Ludger Cherish. Seeing his assistant lying on the floor, the whole party went into an uproar. Luke's bodyguard must be no ordinary person. The rumors about him using special magic were true. Ivan was skeptical, but President Theodore was stunned, muttering, "No way. Are all of Ceoren's professors this powerful?" Elisa smiled brightly and said, "Of course not. It's just that Professor Ludger is a bit special. Anyway, President, I assume you have no more complaints about the results, right? It seemed like I'd let something slip. I must really be getting old. This was a fair match, so I'll have to accept it. Don't worry about my foolish son. I'll make sure to set him straight." Elisa responded happily. As expected from President Theodore, "It's great that we're on the same page." The president stepped closer and said, "By the way, there are a few things I'd like to ask of you." Before he could say anything further, Elisa quickly replied, "No." The president, looking a bit helpless, said, "I haven't even said anything yet." Elisa cut in, "You were going to ask me to introduce Professor Ludger to you, weren't you? I'm sorry, but please refrain from contacting our professor." Hearing this, the president replied, "Well, if that's what you say, all right." A moment later, Ludger sighed and walked out, muttering, "Finally, it's over. Now, let's focus on the main goal." Salina called out, "Professor Ludger." Ludger stopped and asked, "Oh, Professor Salina, are you all right?" Salina smiled and said, "Yes, I received an apology from President Luke. Thank you for helping me. So, where are you headed now?" Ludger replied, "I'm not sure. I don't have any specific plans." Salina suggested, "I'm about to meet with the Elven professors. Would you like to come with me?" The mention of the Elven professors surprised Ludger. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Salina led Ludger to a banquet table where 4 other professors were sitting. One of them, curious, asked, And this is... Another professor with green hair and long ears spoke up. This is Professor Ludger. I've heard that even though he's a new professor, he's already been assigned to second-year classes. No one seemed particularly surprised or reacted in any unusual way. Ludger greeted them and started a conversation. Honestly, second-year classes are a bit overwhelming for me. Professor Selena responded, don't be so modest. Looking around, Ludger thought, damn, I haven't gathered anything yet, He had closely observed the three professors, but none of them showed any strange reactions. Based on the previous conversation, Esmeralda seemed like a strict and aggressive person. She wasn't the type to keep calm in a situation like this. So, does that mean she's not actually a professor? No, I don't have enough information yet. I need to consider all possibilities, Ludger felt a bit thirsty, so he went to get a glass of water from the server. Suddenly, he heard someone call Professor Ludger and jumped in surprise. Looking past the server, he saw that it was Lin. What are you doing here? He asked. Lin quickly replied, a senior recommended this place for me to work part-time. If you look closely, you'll probably spot some of my classmates too. After hearing Lin's explanation, Ludger nodded and said, all right, just don't overwork yourself. Be sure to head home before it gets too late. Yes, Professor. Thank you. I'll be going now, she said. Selena walked over to Ludger and said, Professor Ludger, it's you. Wait, isn't that Lin? Professor Selena, do you know Lin too? Yes, I've met her before. What a coincidence. My assistant is also working here part-time. Ludger became curious about this assistant and asked, you mean a teaching assistant? Selena pointed to the girl and said, even though she's just a first year, she's very talented in elemental magic. Her name's Jonah Levate. Ludger watched the girl and thought to himself. Thinking it over, he realized he had completely overlooked the students. Since she was a high-level spirit, he had mistakenly assumed she was a professor. But where was she going? He followed Jonah and thought, where is she headed? Is she just returning a tray to its spot? Ludger felt like maybe he had become too sensitive, afraid he might miss noticing normal things. A few discussions nearby caught Ludger's attention. About that, aren't those guys trying to start some kind of business? They brought a huge amount of fabric. Maybe you're trying to get into the clothing industry or something. Huh, what do those lowlifes think they're doing? For the conversation, Ludger guessed they were talking about Violetta. She's moving faster than I thought. Even though she's trying to hide it, she must be feeling really discouraged right now. But there's still hope for her. The others kept talking, and it was almost laughable. Why don't they know their place trying to get into the royal family with that petty deal? Why get angry? Isn't it obvious they're not going to achieve their goal? Just keep drinking and watching the show. Ludger sighed after hearing this. Idiots. Their actions will cause a huge wave. It's going to change the future. They'll realize it soon, both them and everyone else. Suddenly, Ludger felt dizzy and the glass in his hand dropped and shattered. Alisa, concerned, asked, Professor Ludger, are you okay? Ludger held his head, feeling lightheaded, and replied, I'm fine. The floor's just a little slippery. I'll step outside and get some fresh air to clear my head. Chris suddenly noticed Ludger's behavior. Ludger walked out into the hallway, his head spinning, and the voices in his mind kept repeating, Choose us, our power. You are the chosen one. Ludger shouted, Shut up. He then took 3 pills to steady himself. After a moment, Ludger felt a bit better. He had overexerted himself during the battle, trying to end it quickly. I'm so careless. It took me getting to this point to realize it. Unfortunately, Chris had seen Ludger's actions. There was surely some kind of plot to frame him later. Chris asked, suspiciously, Pills. Ludger went back inside and suddenly heard a scream for help. He paused and asked, confused, What's that? Inside, flames were rising high and people were screaming, a monster. Run quickly. Ludger saw the scene and wondered, what's happening? A monster was roaring and setting fires around. This monster was Esmeralda. It growled and exhaled a long stream of fire. Some guards rushed in trying to stop the flames to protect the people. One of them asked, where did that monster come from? Everyone, put out the fire. Evacuate the guests first. A few professors stepped in, guiding everyone to safety. Everyone, this way. A wolf spirit appeared, helping to block falling debris near the guests. People soon realized, is that a spirit? That's Angela Anderson's spirit, the 5th-year professor of spirit theory. And there's the water spirit of Professor Verano Dentist, a 4th-year professor of spirit theory at the Academy. The spirits, working together with the guards, launched a full attack on the monster. Damn it, this isn't working. Be careful, something's falling from the ceiling. For the ceiling, something molten was falling. A guard swung his sword to cut it, but the fire spread along the blade, igniting it. His bodyguard's armor was quickly engulfed by the flames. The others noticed and started shouting to each other, don't let the fire touch you. If it touches something, just get rid of it. This isn't ordinary fire, it's more like lava. Ludger could feel it too, realizing that this wasn't just any high-level spirit. It was the highest level, almost reaching level 7, a level 6 spirit. But wait, why does this spirit have a human form? Normally, they take the shape of animals or plants, right? Something's off here. Now I need to pay attention to that damn thing. There's no little body. It's transforming using some sort of intermediary object, isn't it? The advantage of using an intermediary object is that it hides the identity of the caster. Given where the spirit appeared, the intermediary object was probably the silver tray on the table earlier. Just like I suspected Jonah Lovett is Esmeralda. I can't chase her down right now, but I'll find a way later. For now, I need to handle this. Ludger's gaze suddenly caught sight of someone trapped under a pile of debris. It was Lynn. The moment she opened her eyes, she wondered, what is that? I need to get out of here quickly. But her legs, facing the flames coming from the monster, seemed unable to move. She felt like there was no miracle coming to save her. Lynn shut her eyes in fear, but then she heard her name, Lynn. With his powerful magic, Ludger teleported her out of harm's way, avoiding the flames. He asked, "Are you okay?" She was overwhelmed with emotion as she realized she was still alive, and that it was Professor Ludger who had saved her. Looking at the spot where she had been trapped, she wondered, when did we? Ludger quickly interrupted her thoughts. Be careful with your leg. It's injured, but not badly. I'll treat it right away. Lynn glanced around at her surroundings and asked, this scene, I feel like I've seen it before. Professor, what's going on? We've met before, haven't we? Her question made Ludger pause. What are you talking about? Maybe you're confused. Lynn hesitated. Oh no, I just have this feeling that. Before she could finish, Ludger spoke again. Your wound's been treated. It's too dangerous here. We need to leave now. Lynn asked, what about the professor? Ludger replied, I still have things to do. You should leave first. Lynn stood up, left, and said, yes, thank you for saving me. After making sure Lynn was safe, Ludger turned back to the monster. He used Ader Nocturnus. In the blink of an eye, Ludger appeared beside the beast. With a tender, loving gaze, he prepared to kill it. He whispered in its ear, the ceremony ends here. The spirit of wind rushed in, followed by the water spirit, biting the monster. Ventus won. The two spirits' attacks were blocked by the creature's massive arm. But then that arm began to wither and break off. Everyone cheered, one of its arms is broken. At this rate, we'll win. But another voice spoke up, no, the hit didn't cause as much damage as I thought, and after just one blow, Anneline's form has already started to break apart. The surprise was still coming. The arm that had been destroyed was now regenerating. Realizing things were going wrong when he saw it heal, Ludger called out, Professor Angela, bring Ventus one back immediately. Both spirits were recalled. Professor Verano realized she couldn't bring the thing down. Just then, the principal stepped outside. No, were they after that? Suddenly, she saw a shadow appear beside the fire monster. It didn't take long before she could clearly see that it was Ludger Cherish. Ludger used ice magic to attack the monster. It blocked the attack with its arm. What did Verano realize? The spirits were moving strangely, almost like they were trying to protect something. A shape began to emerge from behind the flow of lava, something that looked like a disc. Verano said, I see. That was summoned through a medium. Angela asked in confusion, a medium. Ludger looked at the monster, silently thinking to himself that he didn't have enough power. After exhausting himself earlier, he couldn't cast any major spells now. Well then, it should be over soon. Ice magic was summoned with a magic coordinate marker, appearing right at the disc location. Then came a destructive blow aimed at the disc. The disc was the core of the monster. Sharp shards of ice shot out in all directions. A massive explosion followed. Verano exclaimed, he did it. But a terrifying voice suddenly echoed, humanity, you filthy bastards. I swear one day all of you will be burned alive. It turned out that it was still struggling. Ludger challenged it, go ahead and try if you can. The monster slowly began to fade, but it still shouted, you will definitely feel the heat of the flames. Ludger officially declared a grudge against the monster. He stood amidst the fire, looking incredibly cool as he surveyed his own body. Then Ludger had a private conversation with Verano. Both of them knew that the lower part of the monster had not been fully formed. Ludger said, that's right, and after carefully examining the blurred area, I found that it's connected to an intermediary object. Verano asked, you figured this out too? Ludger denied, anyone in my position would have noticed this for sure. Verano replied, I didn't pay attention to that. I guess because my expertise is in spirit studies, I didn't think that far. The contracts in spirit studies are designed to be fair to both parties. So forced summoning, which spirits despise the most, is something that's almost never used. And to be honest, I've never heard of a spirit who hates humans. Ludger asked, isn't it usually like this with spirits? Verano shook his head. Spirits represent nature, so they don't have consciousness like humans do. The thought of spirits existing this way, along with the incomplete response, felt strange to Verano. Still, Thanks to the professor, at least we managed to avoid any major damage, especially with the magic you used at the end of the battle. That must have been a space jump, right? You shouldn't be sensitive about it. I've lived long enough to have seen it before, so I can recognize a lot of things. Ludger replied, that's right. This magic is created by placing magical energy at a specific coordinate, then manifesting it. At first, it's a bit tricky, but once you get the hang of it, anyone can use it. Verano was surprised. Oh, you said a coordinate, is that possible? He thought to himself, no matter how familiar a regular person might be with this spell, they still wouldn't be able to use it easily, unless they had a natural talent for spatial awareness, or... Verano spoke up, are you okay? Ludger replied, what do you mean? Verano answered, I mean, when you use magic when you're not feeling well, do you experience any unusual symptoms, like hearing strange sounds, for example? Ludger thought for a moment, then said, it's just something I've been worried about, but sometimes some people have a higher level of awareness than others. The world calls them geniuses, but the truth is a bit different. If geniuses are people who break through certain barriers to showcase their talents, then those others have no barriers at all. Ludger curiously asked, isn't that a good thing? Verano responded, it sounds like a blessing at first, but it's not really. People don't realize that the barrier that holds them back is also a solid wall protecting them from the outside. Verano continued, that's why I asked you, Professor Ludger, have you ever heard any strange sounds in any unusual situations? Ludger replied, the idea you're talking about is really interesting, but unfortunately, it doesn't apply to me. Verano asked, is that so? Ludger said, yeah, but it's still pretty interesting. Do you have any other thoughts on it? Verano shook his head. Unfortunately, that's all I know from when I was younger. Ludger felt that the stories of an elf's youth were almost like legends, especially for a human who doesn't live as long as an elf. Verano laughed and replied, that might actually be true. Verano thought to himself, asterisk, he looks extraordinary, so I thought, but I guess not. A normal human would never be able to handle something like that with a clear mind, asterisk. Suddenly, Ludger spoke up. Is there anything else besides that? Verano turned around and asked, what? Ludger said, well, you mentioned they hear voices from the world beyond. Is there anything else? As far as I know, it's just the voices. After all, normal people wouldn't be able to receive them. And what if they could? Then there would probably be a next stage. For example, the symptoms might worsen. I think they could start seeing things, but that's just a possibility. If anything happens after that, this is what they'd face. They might even directly encounter those things, those gods. A few days later, information about the terrorist who attacked the banquet hall started to spread. Do we know the true identity of that person? The damage was significant, and most of the victims were from high society. If this was Esmeralda's target, then she's already halfway to achieving her goal. But this works in our favor too, because now we know Esmeralda's true identity. Should we share her identity with Ceoren? It's better not to. This is the first time Esmeralda has made a move. If her identity is revealed too quickly, Black Dawn will start suspecting me since I was the one who took down that spirit. It's not time yet. We should observe a bit longer and wait for the right opportunity. Ludger came across a piece of information that caught his attention. This guy is Ivan Luke. He's the one running the auction house, right? Are we increasing security for the auction because of yesterday's event? This is starting to get a little more complicated. A voice interrupted Ludger's train of thought. Are you allowed to call others this early in the morning? Ludger responded calmly. Oh, you're here? Let's go. You said you were curious about the changes in the slums, right? A little later, the two of them arrived at a busy neighborhood. Violetta told Ludger, all right, take a look. This is the area that was just renovated. Ludger looked around and remarked, wow, it looks much cleaner and more organized than before. Violetta responded, we've used about 80% of the budget to widen the pathways, just like they said. This area will soon be full of craftsmen. Other groups are starting to work with your suggestion too. Some are even working on a musical to replace the circus act. Dayon and Mastella are preparing the magazine you mentioned. They're getting ready to collect short stories from unknown authors. Although we told the kids to spread the word, I'm not sure if it's having much effect. Ludger said, it's fine if they fail. Just remind them to focus on advertising well. In any business, having initial investment is always a must. Violetta sighed and said, that's true, but so far not many people are willing to invest in us. The two of them kept walking. Violetta pointed out, and over here is the new tailor shop. They plan to start with simple, affordable clothes to appeal to the market and gradually bring in more luxurious and well-known styles. Ludger said, you seem pretty confident. Violetta replied, of course, I've always dreamed of this moment. Ludger complimented, all right, it looks like we've seen all the updates. Now let's go meet everyone. Violetta, a bit confused, asked, meet who? What do you mean? Ludger explained, the people we'll be working with. Ludger and Violetta walked toward a guy who was flirting with a young woman. He was saying sweet things to try and win her over, probably planning to take her home. Oh, my muse. If only you could give me the chance to be with you tonight. The girl seemed like she was about to say yes. Oh, really? No. Ludger, who was also watching, spoke up. Here he is. But then a hand grabbed the guy's arm. Excuse me, miss, I'm afraid I have to go with him now because we had already set up an appointment. The girl happily responded, of course. She left with the same dreamy look she had earlier. The guy asked, aren't we a bit early for our appointment? Ludger sighed. I figured you'd be late if I left you to it alone. A blonde guy, a member of UN Owen, said, come on, leader. Who do you think I am? Oh, and may I know the name of the beautiful lady standing next to you? Violetta glared at him with a look of disgust before replying, is he really working with us? Ludger confirmed, yes, he is. He might act like a fool, but he's got the skills for the job. Violetta wasn't convinced. He must have more to offer than what I'm seeing, right? Alex interrupted, brushing it off. What kind of treasure and win are you looking for, leader? His question, along with his look, completely wiped out any goodwill Violetta might have had left. Violetta whispered, are you sure we can trust him? Alex stepped closer, speaking with a smug tone. Apologies for the late introduction. I'm Alex, a noble from the southern part of the Fatima Kingdom. I hope both of us find good fortune. Violetta was surprised to hear he was a noble, but Ludger had warned her to be careful. He was a professional con artist. Violetta looked at Alex with more disgust, pretending to be someone else in front of me. Alex raised an eyebrow. So, why exactly did you call me here? Ludger said, I'll explain more when we get back to the hideout. Alex, curious, stroked his chin and asked, your hideout, you mean the place where those people are? I wonder, what if I end up disappointed by how ordinary it is? Ludger heard this and wasn't sure how to respond, so he simply said, you don't need to worry about that. When they arrived at the base, Han ran out to open the door, but he looked like he'd just been drained of all energy. You're back, he said to Ludger. How did the investigation go? You look exhausted. Han replied, I'm fine, but I can't stand this anymore. At that moment, someone called from inside. Han, where are you? Oh, you're here. Oh, boss, it's been a while. Belluna Pitana, also a member of UN Owen, greeted them briefly, then pulled Han inside, saying, so, Han, where was I? Violetta asked, who is she? As you can see, that's Belluna. She's an elf. She's in charge of making both medicines and gunpowder. Belluna was pulling Han into some kind of experiment with her mouth, telling him, it'll just sting a little. Han could only feel helpless in the face of her strength. Alex wondered, wait, aren't elves supposed to hate artificial creatures? Ludger glanced over at Alex and replied, that's just a stereotype people put on elves. Saying that is like assuming every other species looks at you and thinks you're a fraud. Alex, feeling down, said, leader, I really wonder what you think of me. Just then, a voice called out, has everyone arrived? Ludger greeted back, oh, looks like you two made it right on time. The two guys were Pantos, a tall man with white hair and a member of UN Owen, and Arpa, the shorter one, also a member of UN Owen. Ludger scanned the room and said, now that we're all here, let's head inside and get down to business. They all walked back inside, and Ludger took a seat at the center, saying, all right, Alex has finished introducing himself. Now it's your turn, Pantos. Alex, feeling frustrated with Pantos' lack of effort, said, what the heck? Is that all you're going to say? Arpa laughed and said, Pantos doesn't usually talk much. I hope everyone can understand him. Turning to the group, Arpa continued, I'm Arpa. I don't have a last name. Han looked at him, feeling there was nothing special about him. How did you end up getting to know the leader like that? Arpa awkwardly responded, are you talking about Sir Ludger? Well, if I had to put it simply, I guess I could call him Father. Violetta gasped and quickly turned to Ludger, asking, what do you mean? Ludger explained, to make it brief, he's not my real son. It's kind of complicated to explain. Arpa added, when I was born, I didn't know much about this world. Han was confused and asked, what do you mean by that? Arpa continued, the reason I consider your leader to be like a father to me is because he taught me so much. I could introduce Pantos again, but before that, could you take your hat off? Pantos took off his hat, revealing 2 animal ears. Everyone was shocked. He's a beastman. Arpa nodded. Yes, that's right. Among the beastmen, he's one of the most physically developed. He's really dedicated to tasks that require strength, like hunting whales. Han, still puzzled, asked, hunting whales aren't beastmen usually afraid of water? Ludger immediately spoke up, that's not true. Phantos' strength and skills have already proven he can lead his people. Han saw his brother speaking, so he figured it was probably trustworthy. Even so, I was still defeated by him. That's why I decided to work under him. Ludger continued, anyway, Pantos will work for us as a combat operative. Within the group, he'll be the second strongest. Everyone gasped at this. And finally, there's Violetta. Violetta seemed surprised. Really? Me? Ludger looked at her and said, yes, I was hoping you'd continue working with us. Violetta responded, hold on. I only came here to show you the way. I'm already swamped with business. Isn't everything ready by now? She hesitated a bit. Well, I didn't mean I'm not interested in joining. It's just, I'm not sure if I should. Everyone here has their own strengths and Ludger cut her off. Violetta, if I thought you didn't have the skills needed to join us, I wouldn't have brought you here in the first place. There's only one reason I've introduced you to everyone, and that's because I believe you have more than enough skills to be part of this. I just need a confirmation from you. Will you work with us? Violetta replied, all right, good luck to both of us. Ludger exclaimed, thank you. And now we have all the members we need. I've chosen the best people I know. The team here is even better than I expected. Now, before we begin the meeting, let me introduce our first objective. In the coming days, we'll be raiding the location where the Kunst auction is about to take place. Violetta panicked. What? The Kunst auction? Ludger said, yes, that's right. They have something I want. While we're taking that, I think we can grab a little extra bonus on the way out. Alex spoke up, leader, wait a second. Let me clarify something first. As far as I know, no one has ever robbed the Kunst auction house before. There have been hundreds of attempts over the last 20 years. I'm sure they've tightened security after the terrorist attack not long ago. There are even rumors that Luke, the auction host, has an artifact that lets him keep an eye on the archives at all times. But seeing you speak with such confidence means you have some kind of plan, right? Of course, Ludger responded, Han, bring it in. Everyone, please pay attention. This is the building blueprint I managed to get. Our target is here. The next day, as Ludger was walking, he noticed 3 people talking. He immediately recognized 2 of them, Professor Selina and Joanna LeVay. He couldn't help but wonder, asterisk, who are they talking to, asterisk? Selina seemed to recognize him too and greeted him warmly. Hello, Professor Ludger. He smiled and returned the greeting. It's been a while, Professor Selina. Selina replied cheerfully. It has been. It's been some time since the accident at the party, hasn't it? The man who had been talking with Selina and Joanna was tall with blonde hair and a gaunt face. When he saw Ludger approaching, he excused himself and said, excuse me. As the man walked away, Ludger asked, were you 2 discussing something important? Selina replied, he's just a bit worried about what happened at the party. Ludger didn't press further. Instead, he asked Selina, sorry I didn't ask sooner, but how have you been lately? Selina answered honestly, I'm fine. Of course, if there's something you don't know, it's probably because it hasn't reached you right, Professor Ludger. Then she turned to Joanna and gently reminded him, thanks to you, all the students are safe. Has my assistant expressed his gratitude to you yet? Joanna had been silent until then, and now she lowered her head as a sign of thanks to him. Ludger looked at her, unable to shake the thought, Esmeralda, it seems like you're trying to play it as if you don't know anything, pretending that's the right choice. Selina continued, forgive me, Professor, if there was anything I could have done to help you back then. Ludger immediately interrupted, you evacuated everyone and did the best you could. But Selina still felt like she hadn't done enough. She folded her hands together and blamed herself, saying, no, that was all I could do. I lacked the necessary skills, so Ludger couldn't help but think, is she really worrying about things like that? So he quickly reassured her, Professor Selina, unlike you, I don't know how to smile warmly and kindly at everyone the way you do. Selina was taken aback, letting out a small exclamation. Ludger continued, your attitude is what helped everyone stay calm while they were being evacuated. You did an excellent job in the role you were given. Selina muttered to herself, smiling brightly and kindly. Then she lowered her head, looking deeply sad. She responded, I don't know either. Do I really deserve to hear those words? Ludger was confused by what Selina had said when she suddenly asked in a panic, have the classes started already? I'm sorry for wasting your time. Selina waved goodbye to him and also to Joanna before leaving. She didn't forget to thank him, saying, thanks for listening to my troubles. Next time, I'll treat you to a meal. Ludger quietly watched the 2 of them walk away. Suddenly, Sedina appeared behind him. She stared at Selina and said in a very hostile tone, I feel a bit uncomfortable. How dare she share her problems and make you listen to them? Ludger turned around and told her, you should learn how to handle situations like this more naturally. Sedina, caught off guard by the remark, hesitated and replied, I understand, sir. Professor Ludger took the opportunity to ask Sedina a favor, saying, let's put that aside. Can you look into this person for me? Sedina, hearing this, became fired up and shouted loudly, got it. Leave it to me. I'll even track down distant relatives of theirs if you need me to. Ludger told her that wouldn't be necessary. Then he continued, I need you to investigate Joanna LeVay. Sedina immediately accepted the task. Yes, I'll get started right away. Meanwhile, at the auction, Ivan was checking his watch and grumbling. I heard they're on their way, but when will they actually get here? The bodyguard with him also started sweating. He suggested, sir, why don't you wait inside the building? Ivan turned around and snapped at him. Sure, let's just let them arrive on time and make us look bad. He gritted his teeth and muttered, this is a great opportunity for the Luke Corporation. We can introduce our products and boost business. Plus, this might be my only chance to regain my father's trust. Just then, the car with the person they were waiting for pulled up. Ivan exclaimed, they're here. As the person stepped out of the car, Ivan immediately greeted them. Welcome. I'm the manager of this auction house. My name is Ivan Luke. The person who arrived responded cheerfully. Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you, I am. Before he could finish introducing himself, Ivan quickly spoke up. I've heard about you already, Lord Algor Musla. The Lord smiled warmly and thanked him. Ha ha, it's an honor to hear that someone like me, who's been abandoned by family, is still welcomed. Ivan happily led the way. Well then, please follow me inside. We'll make sure to provide you with the best services. Musla responded, no need to be so formal. He patted Ivan on the shoulder, speaking as if they were old friends. It seems like we're around the same age. How about we become friends? Ivan, a little uneasy, replied, are you sure? Musla smiled. Let's go inside first. As soon as they enter, Musla said, oh, before I forget, could I ask a favor of you? Ivan repeated, a favor. One of Musla's bodyguards handed over a suitcase. Musla explained, I was given a valuable item on my way here. I haven't found a proper place to keep it yet. Ivan, curious, asked, what is it? Musla replied, we're still using magical water to produce high-quality magic stones. Hearing this, Ivan was startled, thinking about the magical stone business. Musla continued, this is the design prototype for the business. I can't keep it by my side all the time, can I? Ivan chuckled and said, ha, you're absolutely right, sir. Musla hinted, in that case, do you happen to know a good place to store it? Ivan, excited, responded, of course, sir. There's a perfect place to keep it in the basement. He then turned and led the way. This way. Let me show you. Musla, feeling grateful, said, really? I appreciate it. At that moment, a yellow gem appeared near Musla's ear. It looked like a pair of earbuds. About an hour earlier, inside the carriage Musla had traveled in, the conversation was lively. I never thought you'd be able to make a suit like that, so similar to the ones worn by the southern nobles. I'm impressed. Violetta, right? A voice responded, that would be great. I just hope you remember whom you're supposed to be playing. It turned out that Alex, Ludger's teammate, had disguised himself as Lord Musla. After finishing his disguise, he answered the question about his new identity, saying, of course, even though I don't have much power, remember my father's business in the magical stone trade. I'm a handsome, young noble with influence. Pretty spot on, right? Ludger, uninterested, replied coldly, I'll pretend I didn't hear the last part. Then he turned to Pantos and asked, Pantos, can you play your role properly? All you have to do is stay quiet and pretend to be his bodyguard. Pantos responded, if that's in order. Ludger rested his chin on his hand and said, recently, the Luke Corporation has been trying to expand into the magical tools and artifacts market. This has led them to look for sources of magical water, since it plays a crucial role in creating magical tools. Alex, sitting next to him, chuckled and asked, so, is that why you chose this identity for me to disguise myself as? Ludger didn't deny it. That's right, I'll take this chance to make a connection with Ivan. He then handed the earpiece to Alex and said, we're almost there. Put this in your ear before I go out there. Alex, curious, asked, what's this? Ludger explained it's a communication device Ceoren made. Back to the present, as Alex entered the auction house, he whispered into the earpiece, this is Vigo, heading to the target location with Melville. Ludger responded, got it. It seemed Ivan heard it. As Alex, now pretending to be Lord Musla, whispered something, Ivan turned around and asked, did you say something? Alex calmly replied, oh no, I was just admiring your interior design. Ivan, pleased with the compliment, smiled widely. Harpa, I knew you'd appreciate this stuff. Now, let's just take this down. Ivan took out a key. Alex glanced at the key and couldn't help but think the elevator entrance is unlocked by a single key. And just like Hans said, it's guarded by two fully armored knights. Alex remembered when they were discussing the strategy. They had agreed that getting to the basement of Facility C wouldn't be easy. All the items were stored 30 meters underground. On top of that, there was a special artifact that allowed them to track every movement. However, that didn't mean it was impossible. Alex Pantos, I need you to take a look inside the storage area, he said. A little while later in the auction hall, Alex reported, the investigation went well, leader. Based on the current situation, I can confidently say we'll succeed. Ludger responded, really? That's good to hear. Alex then asked, should we stick to the plan? Ludger replied, keep going, but only if you remember everything we discussed. Alex chuckled and said, why do you always have to tease me? Don't worry about it. Ludger said, all right, I trust you. Finish up quickly and come back. Alex responded, got it. I'll say my goodbyes and head out soon. Suddenly, a voice rang out, seriously, why does the leader want me to stay here? When Alex heard the voice, he couldn't help but think, asterisk, that voice sounds so familiar. Asterisk. When he saw who it belonged to, he was startled. He immediately reported, Leader, there's a problem. Ludger asked, what's going on? Alex hesitated before replying, she's here. Not understanding who Alex was referring to, Ludger asked, who are you talking about? Explain. Only then did Alex answer, Enya Joiners, my ex-girlfriend. Ludger was surprised and thought, Enya Joiners, why is someone from the government here? Ludger immediately gave an order, Vigo, get out of there as soon as you can. It's not good for her to find you, especially not you. Alex, watching from a distance, replied, I know, I'll leave as soon as I get the chance. He watched Enya's back deep in thought, asterisk, she's still the same as always. Enya, asterisk. Alex said goodbye to Ivan as he prepared to leave. My friend, I have to go now. Seeing his guest leave, Ivan asked, are you really leaving now? He still tried to steer the conversation back to business. Oh, and about that business matter we were discussing earlier. Alex tried to respond defensively. I prefer to discuss this at another time, something more private. It was getting dark, and Alex had returned. He asked, is Bella Luna still not back yet? Ludger replied, she's fine. She's analyzing something I gave her. Then he turned to Alex and said, okay, explain it to me in detail, Alex. Alex began to explain. The general layout of the auction house is pretty similar to the map you showed us. But what's more important is that the items up for auction are divided into 3 rooms, depending on their value. The most valuable items are placed in the rooms with the highest numbers. The auction will last 3 days. Each day, items from each room will be auctioned, starting with the ones in the first room. After hearing this, Hand commented, after looking into it, it seems that the items we're after are in the 3rd room. Ceoren excitedly exclaimed that we should focus on the 3rd auction day, right? But Ludger thought differently. He said, no, our plan will take place on the 2nd day. Ceoren, curious, asked, huh? Why's that? Alex quickly explained, on the 3rd day, security will be tighter. On the 1st day, the auction will attract a lot of attention, so the best time to act is the 2nd day. He then turned to Ceoren. Ceoren, how's the thing I asked for coming along? Ceoren replied, it's almost done. She'll finish in the next 3 days. Alex then looked at Violetta. Violetta, can you find an expert in construction or interior design? Violetta said, I'll see what I can do. She continued, more importantly, I've heard that a knight from the intelligence agency has joined their well-known cavalry team. He's sharp. Do you think that will be a problem? Alex said, he's just a low-ranking knight, nothing to worry about. Violetta shot back, how do you know there's only one? There could be more when our plan goes into action. Alex replied, actually, I think I've met that knight before. Violetta raised another concern. What if you run into him while we're in action? Alex scratched his head and sighed. We've met once a long time ago. Don't worry, I'll play my part perfectly. Ludger tried to calm Violetta down. It's okay. The information we gathered today is enough. Violetta didn't ask anything more when she heard him speak. All right, if you say so. Ludger rubbed his chin thoughtfully. It's just a hypothesis for now. The plan stays the same. Meanwhile, at the train station, a girl with green hair stepped off the train, her voice full of excitement. I'm here. Regger Blake. Then she turned around to remind the person following her. Look, assistant, it's about to rain. Don't drag your feet. Come over here. Betty, the detective assistant, shouted angrily. Hey, don't just go off on your own like that. I got a ton of luggage. She was lugging a heavy load of bags and grumbling. Why did you bring so much useless stuff? The green-haired girl responded. Useless? You mean the things that bring me endless inspiration. Suddenly, a stack of papers flew out of her luggage, scattering everywhere. Betty screamed in frustration. What the heck? Who brings a pile of case files from last year with them? The girl with green hair smiled and said, they're all important, Betty. Besides, shouldn't you be moving faster? Betty was organizing a pile of documents and hearing this felt confused. She asked, why? The girl with green hair calmly replied, why? I already told you it's about to rain, right? Betty suddenly remembered and asked, that's a big deal. When will it rain? The girl thought for a moment, considering the humidity, rainfall, and other factors. Then she held up her hand in front of Betty and said 5. Betty responded, 5 minutes. If we hurry, we'll be fine. But the number kept shrinking, 4, then 3, 2, and 1. It wasn't 5 minutes. It was actually 5 seconds. And after 5 seconds, the rain started to fall, making Betty scream loudly. Casey, it's raining. So the girl with green hair was named Casey. Casey calmly opened her umbrella and replied, I knew it. Unlike Casey, Betty was completely panicked. We need to find cover now. All these papers are going to get soaked. Betty quickly gathered up the documents. Wait a second, these can't get wet. You know how particular I am. While talking, Betty grabbed a document, causing her to exclaim, huh? At that moment, Casey created a barrier around them to shield from the rain. Casey cheerfully asked, are you surprised? Betty sighed and replied, you really are something, Casey. If Sister Din was going to do this, why didn't she just do it from the start? Casey, the one who holds the title of Asterisk Color of Rare Jade Asterisk, is a private detective. Her full name is Casey Slay. As Betty followed Casey, she asked, but Casey, why do we have to go to Redderblight? Casey answered, I've heard strange things have been happening around the city lately. Suspicious brutes moving around and the wolf attacks. Betty looked around, listening carefully. The appearance of sorcerers isn't too strange, is it? Casey grinned wickedly. These aren't just any sorcerers. Betty was taken aback. What? Not just any? Casey continued, also, the last trace of him points this way. Betty was confused, feeling more lost than ever. She said, you're skipping over important details again. Last trace of asterisk, who asterisk? Casey mentioned a name, James Moriarty. Betty asked, didn't James Moriarty die while fighting with you? Casey shook her head and replied, Betty, do you still believe that silly rumor? Betty cautiously asked, is it true that the rumor about the two of you fighting by the water near the cliffs and both falling in the final episode? Before she could finish, Casey interrupted, well, that part is true. Betty sighed in frustration, are you messing with me, Casey? But Casey pointed out the difference. The difference with those rumors is that the person didn't die. My intuition tells me that. Betty sighed again, intuition again. What happened to your legendary reasoning skills? Casey cut her off. It's not just intuition. I also have evidence. Betty raised an eyebrow. Really? Casey was absolutely sure, yes, really. My evidence is the articles and data you brought with you. Casey continued, 5 years ago in the kingdom of Durman, a large-scale supernatural attack hit the people. That night came to be known as the Night of the Blood Purge, and it was on that night that a massive, enraged monster appeared, the Beast of Gavaden. The man hunting that monster was none other than Imbarpum Van Helsing. However, he gave up his fame and was never seen again. Betty still didn't fully understand Casey's point. What are you trying to say? Casey wasn't hesitant to explain. 4 years ago, in the kingdom of Patali next to the Empire, there was a land destroyed by the nobles' exploitation. A mysterious thief with a dark shadow appeared. Arsene Lupin. He operated for about a year, stealing many treasures before disappearing. No one ever saw him again. 3 years ago, in the kingdom of Delica, a wicked man tried to start a war, James Moriarty. He suddenly vanished, and no one saw him after that. And when the civil war broke out in the nearby kingdom of Udor recently, the one who emerged victorious was Machiavelli. He disappeared at the end of the war. Betty was starting to understand what Casey meant. Casey, no way. Are you trying to say that all these people are the same person? Casey nodded and said, based on my reasoning, it seems that way. Then she looked around the city and flashed a mischievous smile, saying, the last place this person is predicted to head toward is this city, Redderblight. Betty, confused, asked, why would someone with that kind of power hide their identity and wander the world like that? Casey didn't have an answer. Of course I don't know, she replied. She gazed into the distance and said, anyway, this person was the one who once plunged the Empire into chaos. If they're still alive, we can't just let things be. After that, she turned to leave and called out to Betty, let's go. I found a good place for us to rest. Betty asked, where is it? Casey gave the location. It's the Kunst Auction House. Right now at the Kunst Auction House, Ivan is also welcoming a special guest. He bowed and greeted her, saying, thank you for coming, Princess Arender von Exilian. I am Ivan Luke, and I am in charge of the auction. The princess replied coldly, it's a pleasure. I'm a bit tired now. Could you show me to my room? Ivan was thrilled at her request. Yes, I'll take you to the royal suite. The princess offered a soft thank you. She looked around and couldn't help but think, how much did all this cost? If I sold just one of these, I wonder how many families I could help. Meanwhile, from a distance, Ludger was using a radio device to communicate, unknown. Today, he was dressed in a very elegant suit, fitting for the atmosphere of an auction house. Speaking into his earpiece, he ordered, you and Owen's plan begins right now. Alex adjusted his jacket, feeling excited. This is great, it's finally starting. I thought I was going to lose my mind waiting since yesterday. He quickly blended into the crowd, thinking about the plan. First, I'll meet Violetta downstairs. But just then, he spotted a familiar figure. He immediately ducked out of sight. Alex panicked and whispered, out of all the places, why are you here, Iya? He quickly contacted Violetta and told her, I'll take a moment to tie my shoes and head down. Violetta, hearing this, realized things were already starting to go off track. She grabbed a glass of wine and walked into the crowd, thinking, if things are already like this, I'll have to handle it myself. A few hours ago, both Alex and Violetta received orders. The first goal of the plan was to find the key to the elevator door. Alex, Violetta, I'm assigning this task to both of you. At the party, a man overheard a conversation. The beautiful woman over there, is she a staff member? It turned out that Violetta had pretended to be drunk, acting weak, and asking for help. I think I had a bit too much to drink. Can you help me to my room? The man guided Violetta to her room, and she thanked him. Thank you for helping me. The man tried to remain polite. Of course, I couldn't just ignore a guest at the auction. You got so drunk you forgot your room number, so you're welcome to stay in my room for a while. Violetta pretended to sit on the bed, continuously thanking him. Oh my, you're so kind. Then the man started to make advances. He locked the door and spoke in a soft tone. You need to sober up before you can find your room. Yes, let me help you sober up. At this point, the man took off his shirt, looking incredibly sleazy, and said, why don't we have a little fun together? Violetta replied, oh, I really enjoy fun activities. Just before his hand touched her, Violetta grabbed him and threw him painfully to the floor. Calmly, she asked, is this fun for you? Violetta felt her strength grow. She couldn't help but think to herself, I don't think one move will be enough to take him down. Luckily, she had learned how to enhance her body with magic from the captain. She unlocked the door and began her search. Now, all that was left was to find a key. Meanwhile, everyone was attending the auction. The hosts spoke loudly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for visiting our auction once again. Without keeping you waiting any longer, let's take a look at the first item of the second auction day. This is a piece of jewelry rumored to be the tears of a mermaid. A staff member brought in a beautiful, sparkling blue gem. The host announced the item with excitement, mermaid tear. The audience below couldn't help but marvel. That's really beautiful. At the auction, the starting price was set 1 million dinars. Bids began to rise. 50 million, 200 million. In another corner, Princess Arender gazed at the gem and thought, is that really a mermaid's tear? It's so extravagant. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Although it sounded beautiful, it was clearly fake. Arender turned in surprise to the person sitting next to her, the one who had just spoken. It turned out the speaker was Casey. Casey knew Arender was looking at her. She said, you don't seem very interested in the auction, Princess Arender. Arender, suspicious, asked, have we met before? But Casey answered innocently, no, this is our first time meeting. This only made Arender more suspicious. She asked again, then how do you know? Casey showed off her skills of deduction. I told you before. It's because you look bored. In places like this, not many people show that kind of expression. Did you know the hair at the back of your head is a bit flat? Arender immediately checked her hair upon hearing this. Casey continued, you just took a break in a room, right? Even though the smell of deuterizer is still on you, you're not wearing any perfume. A noble, especially one who cares about what others think of them, wouldn't do that, especially in a place like this. You must be royalty. There have been rumors that you would attend this auction, Your Highness. Arender couldn't help but remark, you must be someone important if you're sitting in the VIP section, right? Casey smiled and said, I forgot to introduce myself. She handed a business card to Princess Arender and said, my name is Casey Selmore, a detective. Upon hearing the name, Arender immediately recognized it. Isn't this the famous private detective? The one who was also a water mage and was given the title Color of Rare Jade. Casey humbly replied, oh, Princess, it's truly an honor to be recognized by you. Arender asked, what are you doing in Kunst? Casey answered honestly, well, I was invited here when I arrived in Retterbelag. Plus, events like these always have their fair share of incidents. Arender looked a bit confused, so Casey explained, let's just say it's my detective's intuition. Meanwhile, Ludger walked on, thinking to himself. It seemed like things had gotten a little off track from the beginning, but Violetta was doing everything she could to complete the mission. Now it was time to gather with the other team members. However, someone recognized Ludger. A voice rang out, oh, who's this? It turned out to be Ivan. He put on a smug expression and spoke with a mocking tone. Well, look who it is. What a coincidence. It's been quite a while since we last met at that party, hasn't it? Ludger Cherish. Ludger shot him a glare, but Ivan didn't seem to notice and kept talking. I don't know what you're doing here, but it's really a pleasure to run into you. Ivan stepped closer and asked, are you enjoying the auction? Even though Ludger didn't like him, he had to respond politely, yes, I'm actually enjoying myself here. This only seemed to make Ivan more arrogant. Ha, just like they say, her mindset really affects your perspective. Ludger didn't care and just replied to keep things moving, yeah, that's true. Well, if you'll excuse me. But Ivan wasn't about to let him go that easily. He ordered his bodyguards. It seems you are here alone. Allow me to escort you. Bodyguards, treat this guest of mine with respect. The bodyguards followed his command. Seeing this, Ludger couldn't help but think, is he really trying to follow me around? It looks like his real goal is to flaunt his power. If things go on like this, I won't be able to move freely. So he announced to everyone, report, I can't take action right now, waiting for backup. Han was completely panicked. Can't take action. Damn it. Backup beans me. His teammate next to him said, Han, I think you need to go. Han knew that was the case and replied, I know. First, this equipment needs to be up and running before I can leave. And for now, don't call me Kafka. Arpa laughed brightly and said, Kafka, can you just call me Dumas instead? Han could only sigh helplessly and replied, even if you don't say it, I'll still call you that. He looked at the equipment and thought for a moment. We're going to be delayed much longer than expected. If that's the case, there's no choice but to act, right? Why is it still not connecting even though the red light is on and I've got a signal? The two of them started discussing excitedly. Oh, Kafka, it's a red light. Good. At least we won't have to go in too deep. Suddenly, someone walked up and shouted, Hey you, what are you doing over there? Get over here now. Han was terrified. Damn it, I've been caught. I didn't even think they'd be patrolling this alley. Arpa turned around and said, Han, do something. The patrolman approached, shined his light on Arpa, and asked, What's going on? Just a kid. What are you doing here? But to his surprise, Arpa knocked the patrolman out with a single punch. Han was stunned. You took down a big guy like that with just one hit? Who are you? Thinking for a moment, Han asked, Are you a knight? Arpa looked confused and said, A knight? You mean those superheroes who graduate from military academies and become official knights, way stronger than normal people? Han realized he was just rambling, so he interrupted, Never mind, good job. Then he told Arpa to tie the guy up and hide him in some garbage or something. Arpa agreed, All right, sounds good. Suddenly, a voice called out, Decker, where are you? Han couldn't help but curse to himself. Dan, there's another one. Suddenly, Arpa yelled out, Wait, I'm here. Han was even more surprised when he heard his voice. Huh? Is that the same knight from earlier? The other knight asked, What are you doing in this alley? Arpa calmly responded, Hey, don't come over here, I'm just finishing up. I'll be right out, just wait a minute. I checked, and it seems like there's nothing weird here. The other knight stuck out his tongue in disgust. Gross. Hurry up and come over. Arpa looked at Han with sparkling eyes, almost expecting praise. How was that? Sounds just like him, right? Han, sweating, asked, What kind of freak are you, anyway? But he quickly brushed it off and said, Anyway, just use the signal to activate the device and let's get inside. Arpa happily replied, Got it. Meanwhile, Alex was feeling exhausted. Phew, finally done. I really didn't think Enia would be here. It was tough to get down. He walked, thinking to himself, I need to hurry, I have to beat Violetta and get the key. At that moment, Violetta ran up and bumped into him. They immediately started acting out a scene. Alex asked, Oh no, are you okay? Violetta replied, Yes, I just slipped. Thanks for catching me. Onlookers thought they were strangers, but in reality, Violetta was slipping a key into Alex's hand. After receiving the key, Alex quickly reported, I got the key and I'm heading to the elevator now. Pantos, who overheard, responded, Copy that, I'll be waiting by the elevator. Pantos was invisible, but when he saw Alex approach, he appeared and said, I'm here. Alex jumped, startled. What the hell? You really scared me. Is that how beasts can hide their presence? Pantos didn't answer the question. He just said, the key. Alex replied, You're so stiff. I've got it. Let's move fast. Alex scanned the area, and just as he expected, the number of guards had increased due to the auction. He quickly contacted, This is Hugo and Melvin. We've reached the gate. On the other side, Ceoren was ready to take action. This is Wells. I'm starting now. Ceoren stepped into the crowd and used a device attached to her legs to release smoke. People panicked, shouting, What's going on? Is that steam? Cough, cough. What's happening? Is this a terrorist attack? Ceoren stood in a corner smiling. This was much better than she expected. The special Belluna scent was quite sharp. Some people tried to calm everyone down. Please stay calm and head to a safe place. Also, ask for help from the guards. We don't have enough people here yet. Someone then called for the soldiers. You need to see this. The soldier also recognized the situation. Chemical terrorism. Wow, this is bad. We'll stay here and guard the elevator. The rest of you go. Alex, who was standing nearby, also figured it out. He said, Is it starting now? You've got those two handled, right? Let's go, big guy. Pantos replied, Got it. The two of them approached the elevator doors. The two soldiers guarding it shouted when they saw the strangers. State your names. This is a restricted area. Alex looked confused. He raised both hands and said, Hold on, we got lost trying to find a safe place because things were so chaotic outside. Now that I think about it, you guys probably don't know who I am, right? I was here last time with my friend, Ivan Luke. The two soldiers, hearing the names, started to let their guard down. Alex continued, That's right, now that I look more closely, I recognize you. You were here last time, weren't you? Do you know where Ivan is? One of the soldiers hesitated before answering. Well, first, don't come any closer and stay where you are. However, without warning, Pantos lunged forward and punched both of them into the wall. Alex, horrified, shouted, "What the hell is going on? You didn't kill him, did you?" Pantos calmly replied, "I avoided hitting his pressure points." Alex looked at the two soldiers, knocked out cold, and thought, one punch, and their armor's dented. Unbelievable. Where did this guy come from? Afterward, Alex reported, "We've taken care of the guards at the entrance." Han, upon hearing this, gave an update. Kafka and Dunas are on their way. Han pressed the red button on the device and, along with Arpa, disguised themselves as servants and entered. "All right, let's head inside." Arpa responded, "Guide." Meanwhile, the auction floor was still buzzing with excitement. The host introduced the next item, and the bidding would start at 500,000 dinars. The crowd below shouted, "The price is 5 million, then 10 million. Ludger, who was participating in the auction, glanced at the bodyguards, still keeping an eye on him. He thought to himself, is he still following me? It's going to be hard to move around freely now. According to the radio communication, everything seemed to be going smoothly. But suddenly, Ludger spotted someone. Wait a minute, it was Casey Selmore. The scene flashed back to a few years ago at the waterfall, when Ludger was still disguised as James Moriarty. He and Casey had gotten into a fierce fight. He shouted, "Are you out of your mind? Casey Selmore, if you keep this up, you'll end up dead." Casey held on tightly as she and he tumbled down the waterfall, shouting, "I don't care. Even if I can't beat you now, I'm still willing to pay with my life just to destroy you." James Moriarty replied, "Fine." She challenged him. "All right then, come at me if you're so tough." James Moriarty could feel that Casey was focused on him. He cursed inwardly, "Is she looking at me? Damn it. What is that woman doing here? I've got a disguise on, so it's unlikely she'll recognize me. But that bitch is so talented, she even earned the title, Color of Rare Jade. If she interferes with our operation, everything we've worked for the past few weeks will be ruined." He tried to calm himself. Asterisk, there's no way she knew about the plan in advance, right? Asterisk, no, if she really knew, she wouldn't be this calm right now. Ludger was more and more convinced that she had no idea what was going on. All he could do was hope the lackeys would handle the situation quickly and quietly. At the building's security office, one guard was yawning and saying, "This is so boring. Who in their right mind would be dumb enough to try to steal anything?" His colleague reminded him, "Hey, focus." The first guard shrugged. "What are you worried about? Look at all the amazing artifacts we have. We even get live feeds from every room with the collection." The other guard chuckled, "Haha, true. It's kind of a shame that such cool artifacts are only being used for security." Suddenly, the screen started to flicker. One of them noticed and asked, "What's going on?" The other replied, "What's happening?" The first guard answered, "Just now, the feed from the second room started glitching." But the guy next to him said, "I think it's fine." Hearing that, the other guy responded, "Maybe it's just my eyes. I've been staring at that thing for too long." However, the gray-haired guy also noticed the problem. He shouted, "Wait, what's that?" The guy next to him jumped in shock. "You scared me. What's wrong?" The gray-haired guy said, "An intruder. Did he get in by digging through the wall? But this place is deep underground." Ivan, who had just received the news, was also startled and shouted, "What? Say that again." The guard repeated, "There's a report about an intruder from the second security room." Ivan yelled, "What about the guards at the entrance?" The guard responded, "The intruder got in by digging." Before he could finish, Ivan had already left in a panic, shouting, "This is ridiculous. Call the guards right now." After a while, the group of guards had gathered below. The commander said, "Good, looks like everyone's here. According to the report, an intruder dug underground to get in. Some of you, go check the nearby sewer lines. The rest of you, split into 2 teams, one for relocation and the other for ambush, and come with me to the storage room." The bodyguards received the order. "Understood, sir." The supervisor also informed Ivan that the guards were heading down in the elevator. At that moment, Ivan was extremely tense. He kept biting his fingers and silently cursed in his head. "Damn it! Do you have any idea how much that artifact is worth? Do you think I'm just going to sit back and let you take it from me?" Immediately he spoke up. "You all know the drill, right? The top priority is to move the items from storage room 3 to a safer location. The ambush team will head to storage room 2 to catch the thieves." Following the command, the bodyguards quickly sprang into action. "Yes, sir." The moving team is rushing to transfer the items to storage room 3. The ambush team follow me to storage room 2 to capture the thieves. Then they called the command center. Ambush team to command were opening the door to storage room 2. The command center responded, "Command the ambush team, the enemy is still inside the storage room." Evan was growing more impatient. "Get inside now, hurry up." The squad of soldiers burst through the door, shouting, "Freeze!" But they were shocked to find that there was no one inside. Ivan received the report and snapped, "No one's here? What do you mean by that?" The soldier responded, "There's no sign of any break-in and all the items are intact." Ivan couldn't believe it. He looked at the screen, still seeing 4 intruders taking gold, and asked, "Then what am I looking at? You must have gone into the wrong room." Suddenly, the screen changed. Everyone in the observation room, including Ivan, was stunned. The screen changed. "Is this a fake screen?" one of the soldiers asked. Another soldier questioned, "What should we do? Should we move the items from warehouse 3 back to their original spot?" Ivan could only reply, "No, leave them there for now, just to be safe." On the other side, the order was passed. "Understood, sir, we'll move them with the teleportation team that's already in the elevator." Ivan clenched his teeth in anger. Damn it, a fake screen. Does that mean someone swapped in a fake video midway? The bodyguard standing beside him thought deeply. Could someone ever place the artifact footage with their own video? What would be the purpose? What would they gain from just swapping the footage? As if realizing the truth, he shouted, "Sir, the storage trap is just a scam." Ivan immediately asked, "What?" The guard explained they had their sights set on the 3rd storage from the beginning. They planned to intercept the goods we were transferring through the procedure. At that moment, the ambush team also contacted them. "Commander, do you copy? This is the ambush team." The commander responded, "Copy. What's going on?" The ambush team hesitated before reporting the elevator to the surface is broken. Ivan, upon hearing this, panicked and shouted, "What?" The ambush team continued, "We have no way out without the elevator. We need your help." The gray-haired commander suggested, "We don't have any internal troops to assist them. Should we call the police?" Ivan immediately rejected the idea. "No, if this gets out, the auction will be completely ruined." The gray-haired commander then asked, "So, what should we do?" But Ivan didn't know what to do. Helplessly, he shouted, I don't know." After that, he could only bite his nails in frustration. The guard beside him tried to salvage the situation, saying, "We'll try to stop them. Focus all security personnel on this." Everyone received the order. "Yes, sir." However, when the bodyguard tried to open the door, it was locked. He was confused. "What? Why won't the door open? Damn it, what's going on?" It turned out that Ceoren had locked the door from the outside. She couldn't help but smile to herself. They were all gathered in one place, almost like they were inviting themselves to fall into a trap. As she walked, she silently praised Ludger. How brilliant the leader's plan is. At first, when she heard about the artifact storage, she didn't know what to do. She remembered when Ludger had asked her, "Ceoren, can you do something? I'm planning to swap the projected image of the storage with an artifact. I need a device to intercept the signal." Now Ceoren had pulled it off. She contacted the others. "Sir, this is Wells. The mission is a success. All 4 members of the team have completed the task and secured the items. 30 minutes ago, Han Arpa had taken down 2 guards and grabbed their uniforms. Arpa then asked, "How does it look?" He put on the armor and said, "Yeah, it fits okay. Why does the stomach area feel so tight? It's really uncomfortable." Alex quickly explained, "Pantos destroyed the armor and we patched it up, but we couldn't fix it completely." Han instinctively glanced at Pantos' fist and hesitated before saying, I think it's fine. It's good enough." Then he told Alex and Pantos, "We'll wait here. We'll catch up with you guys later." Alex responded cheerfully, "All right, see you downstairs." Once Alex and Pantos reached the basement, Alex let out a sigh of relief. Phew. Good thing we didn't run into any guards right away. Before they moved on, Pantos stopped Alex. "Wait, let me check the guard positions." Pantos then used his spirit to scout. Alex, standing beside him, thought, "I see. So you can actually use the spirit for things like this?" A moment later, Pantos spoke up. "There are 8 guards in total spread out. Lucky for us, 2 of them are separated nearby." And just like that, the 2 guards were knocked out. Alex said excitedly, "I can't believe they're patrolling around the storage area. Well, I guess it's a good thing for us. It made it so much easier to take them out." Alex and Pantos took the gear from 2 soldiers to wear, but because Pantos was too tall, the outfit didn't fit, making him pretty uncomfortable. Alex said, "Hang in there. There aren't many guys around here as big as you." Then Alex reminded him about the plan coming up. It was time to get ready. It would happen soon. A little later, all 4 of them blended in with the soldiers. The captain was giving orders. "Transport team, take the supplies to storage unit 3. Attack team, follow me to storage unit 2 to eliminate the intruders." The soldiers complained, "Look at that captain. He's bringing his underlings to take all the credit. He's doing it because he doesn't have many chances to stand out in Kunst. Just focus on the task at hand. Right, if we mess up, we'll draw attention." The 4 of them followed the transport team downstairs. The transport team reported, "We've successfully moved the supplies into the elevator." The attack team responded, "Proceed as usual. Move the supplies to the secure location." At that moment, the four of them realized, "Let's get started." And so, the soldiers in the elevator were all knocked out. Alex spoke up, "All right, now it's the final step." An arrow was shot into the elevator cable. Han immediately asked, what did you just do?" Alex cheerfully replied, "I tampered with the elevator a bit, so the ones who went down can't get back up. In the meantime, let's hurry and get out of here." The elevator inside, after the cable was cut, immediately began to fall. At the gathering point, the team was discussing things. "All right, we've got everything. Everyone, head to the back. We're going up." Han said, I'll head back on my own later. The plan has changed, so I need the leader to check a few things." Ceoren quickly understood. "You're talking about the things Neri is looking for, right?" Han nodded and said honestly, "Yes. I figured out that the real items are still in the auction room, but I can't tell them apart from the fakes. If this one is a fake, we'll have to search again." Ceoren replied, "Is that so?" I answered, "Yeah, but with Neri along, you'll be fine." After that, everyone went back to their tasks. Ceoren asked, "Alex, have you picked up everything?" It seemed like Violetta had returned. She exclaimed, Violetta's back. "Hurry up, let's go." Han looked at his teammates and silently thought, looking back, all these people are pretty skilled. It's not that they lack any abilities, yet all I can do is gather information. The more he thought about it, the more anxious he became. "Oh no, am I going to lose my place here?" Han immediately slapped himself, trying to snap out of it. "What are you thinking, Han? If that was the case, the leader would have kicked you out by now. Just focus on delivering the relic fragments safely." He then contacted Ludger. "Hey, leader, you might be in a spot where it's not ideal to talk, so listen to me. Everyone else has gotten away safely. I'll go get what you asked for and bring it to you." "Damn, looks like I don't have enough energy left to keep this call going. I'll wait for you at the main hall." Upon receiving the message, Ludger observed and thought carefully. "All right, everyone's gotten out." He glanced over at Ivan's bodyguards. Once he saw they had left, he felt relieved. "Looks like those guys finally figured out what's going on. I should leave and meet Han outside." Meanwhile, Han was carefully scanning his surroundings as he grabbed his bag and headed toward Ludger. Seeing there were few people around, he thought, "Seems like no one's here. Is it because of the tear gas the kid sprayed?" Suddenly, Han noticed a few people standing off in the distance. What are those guys just standing there for? Han's instincts told him something was off. Just as he suspected, one of them shot a magic bullet in his direction, catching him completely by surprise. Meanwhile, in the auction room, there was a huge explosion. Ludger was shocked. An explosion. A group of soldiers dressed in full black armor stormed in, shouting, "Everyone freeze! I'll kill anyone who moves." The auction attendees panicked. "Who are you?" "Don't you know where you are?" But the black-clad men paid no attention. The leader snapped, "I told you to stay still." Without warning, he shot a spell at the man who had spoken. People screamed in fear. "Run! Where are the guards?" "Guards, where are you?" "Get out of the way. The safety of the nobles is the top priority." One by one, the black-clad men raised their wands and cast spells. The leader ordered, just kill them all and we'll strip their bodies of whatever valuables they have." Ludger never expected this. He thought, a robbery? How did they get into the auction room? Damn it, it's because of us. Suddenly, a man in a brown coat ran toward him, shouting curses as he came closer. Damn greedy nobles. The man pulled open his coat to reveal a bomb strapped tightly to his body. He screamed, *D*. Ludger immediately recognized it as a suicide bombing tactic used by the Liberation Army. He was sure of it because it was the exact same method they used before. These weren't just thieves, they were targeting this place too. Ludger quickly used his staff to release a spell that pierced the man's body. The bomb went off and he was shaken by the blast. He thought to himself, that was close. I almost died. Meanwhile, a whole building was likely affected by the explosion. Ludger was confused, wondering, how did the bomb go off? Was it a homemade explosive? I destroyed all that stuff when I was still operating under the name Moriarty. So why? As he was thinking, a scream echoed through the room. A man lay on the floor, frothing at the mouth. People around him panicked, whispering, that's a curse. It's forbidden magic. Ludger couldn't stay calm when he heard that. Thieves, the Liberation Army, and now forbidden magic. Damn it, is Han safe? Meanwhile, Princess Arender was running, worried that she wouldn't escape. Thieves and cunts? What's going on? Is Casey all right? Suddenly, a shout rang out. Found the princess. It turned out the Liberation Army had found her. They called to their teammates. Team, capture her. We'll show the nobles the power of the Liberation Army. Arender felt deep regret. I knew I shouldn't have come here. I should have stayed in Ceoren. As the Liberation Army charged toward her, cursing her death, a voice called out, "You're being way too loud." Then countless bubbles floated toward them. "What is this?" they asked. And they were trapped inside the bubbles, only able to shout, "Bubbles? I can't break this. These bombs don't work." One soldier said, "These bombs don't work." Another one, shocked, replied, "It's impossible. These are special explosives that can neutralize magic." It turns out the one who came to rescue Arender was Casey. She said, "The Liberation Army is quiet, but no matter how special they are, they're just explosives, right? All we need to do is wet them, and it's over." Betty had also taken down 2 more. "Casey, this side is cleared." Casey praised her assistant. "Good job, Betty. I'm done on my end, too." At that moment, someone arrived. "Princess, are you all right?" It was Inya. Arender immediately recognized her. "Oh, you were with Tarina back then." Inya said, "I'm honored that you remember me. I'm Inya, a member of the Night Patrol Knights." Casey clapped her hands and said, all right. Looks like we've finished up here. Let's team up and get out of here." Inya couldn't help but wonder, where did these people come from? How did they get past your guards? Casey replied, "Now that you mention it, I haven't seen any guards around here for some reason. They must have gone downstairs, and then a bunch of other people showed up here to stir things up. It's too dangerous here. Let's get out and talk outside." Suddenly, a piece of debris fell from the ceiling, causing everyone to panic. "Oh no, the building is collapsing." Han asked Ludger, "Why did you accept someone like me, a coward?" Ludger unexpectedly responded with a question. "Why do you ask that, Han?" Han thought Ludger must already know that he was someone who feared death, always running away so Ludger could fight alone, even though he had abilities others didn't. Ludger said, "I accept the coward in you." Han thought he must have misheard. Ludger continued, "I know the power you have, how dangerous it can be, and the responsibility that comes with it. I think you're just afraid that your power will hurt someone else." Han felt as if he'd been struck to the core. He began to talk about his past. Han grew up without parents. He lived in an orphanage, but didn't get along with the other kids. However, Han was close to one girl. She was like an older sister to him. She was smart and sweet, which made Han feel insignificant when he stood next to her. One day, that girl brought home a little black puppy. The dog was very cute. Han petted it, but it gently bit him. Before Han could finish his sentence, Ludger interrupted him, signaling that he didn't need to continue. Han clenched his fists. That was the first time he had transformed, and also the first time in his life that he had killed someone. He couldn't stop thinking about it, struggling with guilt. If that dog hadn't bitten your hand, if you had known what was going to happen. No, Han shouldn't have accepted the kindness of that girl in the first place. Ludger tried to comfort him. There will come a time when you'll have to face the reality you've been avoiding. Ludger handed him something. It made Han's skin crawl, and he blurted out, "What the hell is this made of?" Ludger reminded Han that when the time came, there would be no choice but to leave everything behind and run. Even so, Ludger wouldn't blame him. The thing Ludger gave him was a knife in case he changed his mind. "Fight instead of running," Ludger said. "Use this knife only as a last resort. I'll respect whatever decision you make." It turned out that what had just happened was merely a flashback for Han. His eyes slowly opened wide. In front of him stood 2 people in black outfits looking suspicious. He was lying on the ground, his left side soaked with blood, staining his once imposing white suit. Han woke up, still confused about what just happened. A man's voice broke the silence. "Looks like today's their lucky day." Whoever they were, those people had caught the guards at the Kunst auction off guard, leading to this mess. There were 2 of them in total. The one who spoke had blue hair and the other had light brown hair. The man with brown hair reminded the other, "Hurry up and take that thing." The building had just shaken, and he figured the others must have at least a little idea of what was going on by now. The man with blue hair didn't seem worried at all. He spoke calmly. "Take your time, there's no need to rush." He had just grabbed a bag containing mana from a relic and muttered, "How could anyone keep something so valuable in a cheap bag like this?" Just as he turned to leave, Han lunged forward, grabbing the man's leg and demanding, "Give me that bag back. I need to hand it to President Ludger." The blue-haired man raised the bag, surprised to see Han still alive. He had just cast a curse that should have been effective according to the plan. He kicked Han hard, causing him to cry out in pain. He looked down on him, saying, "You can't even move, and you're still asking me to give you that bag." Suddenly, Han's body shook violently, his muscles tensing and bulging. The guy with the blue hair sneered, "You've been holding yourself back with sheer willpower all this time. In the end, you're not going to last much longer anyway." He let Han die slowly, taunting him to try and survive. Han's mind and body felt heavy, like they were sinking. He couldn't move. He reached out, wanting to grab the bag back, but couldn't. Han tortured himself with thoughts that if anyone else had been here, not him, maybe the relic wouldn't have been taken so easily. He forced himself to rise, thinking maybe he'd be cast aside now. After all, He'd always been a coward, unable to do anything to help the president. Deep inside, Han thought, asterisk, it's all because you're too weak. And until the end, you'll just be a burden to the president, asterisk. When he finally stood, Han saw something fall from his body. It was the Ludger knife the president had given him. He picked it up, wanting to pull the blade out. His face was covered in blood, and with a silent wish, he thought, asterisk, if this is the last time, then I'll burn everything I have left, asterisk. With that, he plunged the knife into his hand, hearing a sickening asterisk thud asterisk as blood poured from his palm. Immediately, Han transformed his body from his hands to his shoulders, turning entirely into a beast, letting out a powerful roar. The two then heard it and turned around to see what Han was planning to do. When they saw his current form, they were stunned by how terrifying he looked. At the same time, as if through some kind of connection, Ludger seemed to sense Han's transformation as well. Elsewhere, on a wooden cart that was moving along, Alex and Pantos sat next to each other. Alex noticed that Pantos was staring at something intently. It was the Kunst auction house. What could be so interesting there that Pantos was staring for so long? Pantos felt the unmistakable presence of a prey, but it was dangerous and extraordinary. He spoke through gritted teeth. I've only encountered beasts like this a few times, but this one's different. It's stronger than anything I've faced before. Alex was taken aback, growing suspicious. If it's from the auction house, then I think I know which creature it is. Alex suddenly remembered his conversation with Ludger. He had asked Ludger about the last time when Ludger said that Pantos was the second strongest fighter among them. That meant the top spot must belong to Ludger. Ludger denied it, saying that when he made his assessment, he had excluded himself from consideration. Alex teased him, joking that it seemed like he must be in first place then. Ludger calmly told him the truth. Alex was only in third place. Even though his score at the Knight Academy had been high, he hadn't reached that level yet. Alex pressed further, asking then, who's in first place? Ludger's face grew serious as he answered, Han is in first place. Meanwhile, at the Kunst auction house, the air was thick with smoke and dust. It seemed like the place was under attack. The owner of the auction house was in complete shock, kneeling and clutching his head as if the world had come to an end. A man standing next to him asked, he was fine just a moment ago, and the evacuation of the guest was going smoothly. Why is he losing it now? As soon as he finished speaking, the auction house owner, panic-stricken, asked, has the princess made it out safely? He ordered his people to hurry and find the princess. If anything happens to her, we're all done for. Suddenly from the arena, out of nowhere, thousands of red-eyed wolves appeared, howling frantically. A massive, monstrous hand, bigger than the wolves, struck down on the arena, shattering it to pieces. The onlookers stared at each other in shock, panic setting in as they tried to make sense of what this creature was. It's a deformed wolf with two huge horns. Its face is nothing but bone, hollow inside with sharp teeth, a long tongue, and glowing red eyes. It turned out that the thousands of red-eyed wolves were howling wildly from the fur of this crazed monster, creating a scene so terrifying it made everyone tremble with fear. What was happening to the arena? Why had this creature appeared so suddenly? What would Ludger do in the face of such an unpredictable event? These questions remained unanswered. A monster had appeared in the darkness, sending the people into a panic. This was the very creature. It had truly returned. The one that had nearly destroyed Durman 5 years ago, the Gévaudan beast. The monster let out a deafening roar and began to move toward the crowd. The monster began attacking the people. Help me. The leader of the Clockwork Group spoke up. The Clockwork Group will hold our ground here. Everyone, evacuate immediately. We need to protect the civilians. I heard the auction house was attacked, but by this monster? Listen up, everyone. No matter what happens, the safety of the people comes first. Focus on taking down this monster. The monster attacked the Clockwork Group. Move quick. The leader of the Clockwork team fired a spark from his sword and shouted. He was caught off guard and dodged the monster's attack. The Gévaudan monster attacked Tyan Home with its tails, making the situation even harder. Don't rush it, we have to wait for the right moment. What kind of speed is this? It's huge, and it's fast too. The leader of the Clockwork team said, struggling. This is too dangerous. Where did this thing even come from? The monster destroyed all the buildings in the area. If this keeps up, we're all dead. Casey pointed to a path and shouted, everyone this way. Trust me. Everyone followed the path Casey pointed out and jumped down, landing on a water bubble-like sphere. Casey asked, is everyone okay? Anya replied, yes, thanks to you. The whole group was stunned when they saw themselves standing next to Gévaudan. Casey asked, is that the Gévaudan beast? Anya, still in shock, added, you mean the same monster that made Durman stay frozen for 5 years? Anya turned to Casey and asked, I thought it was dead. Casey replied, I'm sure of it. I saw its body displayed at the Durban Museum, although it didn't look exactly like this. Its structure wasn't as human-like as this one. Could it be a different species? Casey then said, "It's possible, but we can't rule that out. The Javadan beast was killed by Abraham Van Helsing, but now it's here in Redderblake. The last trace of James Moriarty was also found here. There's no way this is just a coincidence. This only strengthens my theory that these two are one and the same. My theory holds up, and he's definitely here." "Moriarty, what are you doing here?" Casey exclaimed, "Stop overthinking it. What we need to do now is take down this monster first." Furious, Casey created columns of water that shot up from the ground. She summoned those water pillars to bind the monster. Who tied up the monster? Was it the team? The Clockwork Group wondered. "That's not important. This is our chance. Let's go." The monster, trapped by the water strands, began to thrash and struggle to break free. Its strength was so overwhelming that Casey found it hard to maintain control. What kind of power is this? Suddenly, the monster's eyes glowed red. It let out a roar and broke free from Casey's water bindings. She was shocked. Asterisk, the magic was undone. Did I fail to maintain it? Could it be the roar that broke my magic? Asterisk. She pondered the reason her spell had been dispelled. She raised her umbrella high, summoning water knights to appear. A squad of knights made of water. This is great. You might turn things around now. Full assault. The water warriors charged at the monster. Meanwhile, someone approached from the ruins of a destroyed structure. A strange mana is radiating. Is that dark magic? And these bite marks. Han, you really used that power? You must have been in so much pain. A person was watching from above, looking down at the battle unfolding below. "Ader Nocturnus, I can't stop you like this. We'll return. Just hold on a little longer, Han." On the other side, "Great, our attack is working. Don't stop now." The monster's eyes suddenly glowed red. Casey noticed the glow and thought to herself, "The eyes in that skull flickered. Just like before, it's going to break through my magic. I need to be ready." The monster's attacks grew fiercer. "Ha! Is it still intact? Wait, is there an earthquake? What's going on?" Aranger shouted, "Look, there's something coming up. Is that a swarm of rats?" Casey panicked and said, Casey Selmore's voice echoed from all directions. "A swarm of rats? No way. It can control other animals, but why rats? I'm terrified of rats." She then used her umbrella to create a wall of water. The rats nearby were thrown back, but the ones that didn't get hit climbed up the wall. As the rat was about to reach her, Betty stepped in to help and said, "We'll help you too." Casey Selmore immediately replied, "Thank you, everyone." Suddenly, there was a loud noise, like something was approaching. "Don't split up," someone shouted. A wolf collapsed, and the nearby rats swarmed toward it. One of the knights warned everyone, "Be careful. That monster can control other creatures." Where did these things come from? The person next to him was bitten by two rats that had climbed up his shoulders. The man turned his head, and then he saw a tall, muscular figure. Trembling, he could barely speak. What in the world is that? The decapitated head of the monster and the rats have merged. It can clone itself. Could this be the reason those mystical creatures started appearing during the Night of Blood? Now a massive creature with sharp claws stood towering before them. The man shouted, "Everyone, focus. We need to escape before more of them show up. At any cost, we must stop them. If we can't, the Javadan nightmare will repeat itself." Now, as the monster attacked with its beams, Casey was still struggling to push it back. They're regenerating too quickly. I can't focus on the main monster right now. Since when did they? Countless rats kept rushing toward her, and she had no idea what to do. Betty, standing next to her, said, "There are two in creatures, Casey. We need to get out of here fast. Use your hands to fight off the rats." Casey Selmore replied, "Wait, Betty, there are still too many civilians who haven't been evacuated." Both of them kept fighting off the rats, while also trying to deal with the main monster. But the rats kept coming, swarming at her feet. Even though she was terrified, she firmly said, "The safety of the civilians comes first. I have to delay them, no matter what, until everyone is evacuated." Eden Joyner said, "This is too much. We're going to lose. You need to escape now." Casey Selmore thought, "No matter what happens to me, it doesn't matter." Then someone suddenly shouted, "It stopped moving. The others have stopped too." What are they looking at? Now the monsters are standing still, staring at a nearby building where a strange stream of dark gas is coming from. A person steps down, and the monsters gape in that direction. Casey Selmore froze when she turned back and realized it was James Moriarty. Betty looked at her and asked, "Are you sure, Casey?" Casey Selmore replied, "That man is the most terrifying thing here. Do you think that monster will recognize that? I hoped he might remember me, but I think I was hoping in vain." James Moriarty said, "I understand. It's always hard to bear the madness of these monsters. Still, I can sense that Han is still alive inside that body. It's the duty of a captain to save a subordinate in danger." He then drew his sword, stepped on a metal rod, jumped high, and landed on the monster's head. He stabbed the monster with his sword, causing blood to spurt out. Casey Selmore exclaimed in panic, He disappeared and reappeared in the blink of an eye. Did he teleport? He jumped down from that giant monster and then quickly ran around, killing the smaller monsters. Casey Selmore said, "There's no way he keeps killing them like this. The severed heads will just keep multiplying into new mystical creatures." Then a monster lunged toward her, but she managed to block it just in time. "Oh right, this isn't the time to stand around watching a show," she said as she turned around and asked, "Is everyone okay?" The people behind her responded in unison, "Yes, Sir Casey. This time, we can only rely on him. It seems like his goal is to eliminate that monster too. It's a little heartbreaking, but we have to admit, he really does have the skill." At that moment, James Moriarty rushed forward and threw some glass vials at the large monster. This seemed to cause it pain, and the smaller monsters screamed in agony. Betty, running while coughing, said, "What was that? Is it spicy? Does it work on the monsters? Has the big one gotten weaker?" James Moriarty replied, "So you're giving up on the injured heads because of the spice and replacing them with new ones. You're smarter than the original. However, I'm sure you've noticed that you've been weakening after each replacement. Don't get distracted." He then placed his hand on the ground and a golden light started to glow around him. The monster was pierced through the palms of its hands by 2 sharp blades. That's when the cloning took effect. James Moriarty drew 2 guns and declared, "Come on."